Right, come on, you four-eyed fat-faced fool. Tell us what's going to be in the new podcast from the two mics.
Well, plenty of buffoonery from you and lots of sense from me. What else? Pardonnez-moi.
I do not have le bouteille to, that means the bottle,
No.
for le punch-up. You know, I cannot do it.
Good morning, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry. You're listening to the two mics on talkSPORT. Another semi-final against Germany, another penalty shootout, another loss for England. It's a familiar old story, but this time Eddie Boothroyd told us they've been practising for 3 weeks, so he'd expected to have an explanation for what went wrong. Asked why they failed, he said, I have no idea. Brilliant. He'll be a great successor for Pep Southgate. 08717 223344. Meanwhile, Jermaine Defoe wants an £8 million signing on fee just for moving to Bournemouth. Has he gone mad? Is he trying to put himself out of business? Also coming up on the show, it's Porky Vision, the best TV review this side of the Tiddly Stadium, where England got thrown out of the under-21s season yesterday. You won't want to miss it. You're listening to the two mics with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on talkSPORT. This is talkSPORT. We are the two mics, and I'm delighted to say it's time to say a very good morning to Mr. Mike, a Porky, a Parry. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
Yeah, very good morning, Mike. And I have to say another heartbreaker, an international heartbreaker.
Really?
You know, bringing another tournament to
Another heartbreaker?
Yeah, it was a heartbreaker.
Are you sure? Why is it a heartbreaker?
'Cause it ain't nothing but a heartbreaker.
Yeah, why, though?
Well, if you go out on penalties, you're very, very
It's
close
just
to
an
going
under-21
through. And
tournament.
it's heartbreaking.
It's not that important, is it?
It is important.
Why?
It's important for national pride. Just
Your
think of the-
goalkeeper was absolutely hopeless, by the way.
Oh, no, my goalkeeper was great.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was.
You think?
He was the England player of the tournament.
Yeah.
And how can you say he was hopeless? He saved a penalty.
Yeah.
Saved
He
a
saved
penalty.
one penalty.
If the England lads at the other end, who had to do their job of striking the penalties, had not failed, we would have won on the basis of our goalkeeper
When Eddie
saving that penalty.
Boothroyd said that they were practising
Yeah.
taking penalties, was he actually practising saving them?
Yes, of course he was.
Was he?
Of course he was. Yeah,
Why
yeah, of
did
course
he
he
save
was.
one? 1 out of 5. It's not very good, is it?
It's very good indeed, because that's a 20% reduction in the opportunistic power of the Germans.
I see.
And that's exactly what he gave
Yes.
them. But no, I have to say that you're absolutely right. Could we have some explanation from Mr. Boothroyd about how exactly they practice these penalties over the last 3 weeks? Because you might as well not have practiced them, because you didn't get through, because you missed more
Well,
than
that's
they
right.
did.
That's right. And he says that he can't explain that because when he was asked exactly why England are so bad at taking penalties, I have no idea, is what he said.
No, he said, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not awe-inspiring, is it, in terms of
It's not really, is it?
confidence, you know, and having confidence. But no, the reason I'd love to have got through and won it is you saw the great, hullabaloo and general rejoicing when we won the Under-20 World Cup.
Yes.
And it would have been lovely to have been able to replicate that in a summer of young glory.
Well, it would
You
have
know
been
what I mean?
nice. Although Spain are apparently the best team at under-21 level anyway, and they're into the final, so I imagine that they're just going to win now, aren't they?
Well, I don't know. Who are they playing? They're playing the Germans.
Well,
Of
the
course they are,
Germans who
'cause
beat
you
England,
speak to us,
yes.
that's
Remember
right,
that
yeah.
game that we just were talking about 2 minutes ago?
Absolutely. So, you know, you can never say no to the Germans.
Never say no to the Germans.
Never say no to the Germans' possibility of success.
I seem to remember that you said on Twitter last night, penalties, England. You then said on Twitter last night, £500 to a charity chosen by a caller to the Two Mics show on talkSPORT tomorrow at 10 a.m. after England win.
That's right.
So does that mean that because England didn't win, you're not going to give any money to charity?
Yes, it does, I'm afraid.
Really?
I mean, I give money to charity anyway, but that was going to be a bonus charity.
I see.
And the reason why, I'm not being mean or curmudgeonly here, but the point is...
Sounds like it.
No, the incentive to win has to be there. I offered a big incentive for the England team to win. They didn't win, so I'm sorry, you can't just now say, oh, well, I'll give it anyway, because that
Why not?
Because it ruins the power of the incentive.
Does it?
Yeah, the incentive is there for winners, not for losers.
Okay.
It's as simple as that.
Here's another tweet you put out at around about 5 to 7,
Yep.
which I can only assume had the effect of the usual Porky jinx. For England and St George, I am absolutely certain that these great young Englishmen will see the Germans off in extra time.
Yeah. We didn't.
No.
But if everybody felt like me, there would be a general wave of optimism
No, there
throughout the
wouldn't.
country, which
No.
would eventually permeate
No.
into the national
No,
psyche.
it wouldn't.
It would permeate.
Because there's being optimistic and being realistic. And realistically, you know, England were never going to beat the Germans at penalties.
It would permeate into the national psyche, and therefore we'd feel better about ourselves, and that would give the players more confidence.
I see.
Now, let me just give you the marks out of 10 for the England team.
Yeah.
Pickford 7. Everybody else either 5 or 6,
Yeah.
except only for Mawson
Well, that's not very good, is it?
and for Gray. But everybody else was less good than Everton's goalkeeper, Pickford. Okay?
Right, so you're saying that Pickford is therefore the man of the tournament?
Well, the report on him says, consistently good distribution, saved one in the shootout. I mean, you can't do more than that as a goalkeeper, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I suppose not. I was just really noising you up, to be honest.
Yes, I know.
Now, this came in just
by
before
the way,
the show started.
the German goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Was that cheating, taking those notes out of his sock?
I don't think it was.
Cheating.
No.
That's cheating.
Well, you said to me it was subject to some rule of football, right? Which I don't believe it is. You can put any number of things down your sock. I don't think there's any rule about what you can put down your sock.
If you take notes
you
into an examination...
You want to put a piece of toweling down there. You want to put a shin guard down there, shin pad.
Yeah, but this is information. This is information he's taking onto the pitch. I didn't think you could do that.
Well, I think you can do anything you like. You can take a crossword on if you want to do that. You can take a birthday card on. There's no reason not to. And it didn't help him anyway because he had a look at it.
Yeah.
And then immediately afterwards, the guy scored the penalty. So just because he had information on which way the ball was going to go, it didn't actually help him anyway, did it?
Well, no, but he might have missed more if he didn't have those notes in his sock reminding him where the individual England players put their penalties.
I don't think it made any difference.
We probably could have won.
No, exactly right. Now, how about this from Joe, who said this just before the show started, having heard you on the Anna Brazil Sports Breakfast.
Yes.
Get Porky on the painkillers ASAP. He is losing it already before the show's even started.
Where's that?
It's on Twitter.
Sorry, are you talking about this morning?
Yeah.
When we spoke to Mr. Brazil earlier on?
Yeah.
And Ray Parler?
That's right.
Well, I was only talking up what we're going to be talking about. How could I possibly have lost it?
Well, because you were shouting, you were abusive, you were, quoting rules from football that didn't exist.
I wasn't shouting and I wasn't abusive. I'm not that sort of chap.
I believe you were abusive to me.
That doesn't count, does it? I mean, that's not abuse, that's banter, that's what we call that.
Yeah. I have no idea, it's not far removed from I don't know why I'm here, is one text that we got in this morning, which is similar. Well, that is the kind of the English thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Roy Hodgson, I don't know what I'm doing here. A.D. Boothroyd, I have no idea. Pep Southgate has come out with similar things, hasn't he, about explanations as to why England have done so badly. Yeah. So, we need to hear from some of you out there because I don't agree that it's a disaster. I don't agree that we should be feeling bad about this. The England under-21s were never going to be the champions of this tournament anyway. Yeah. So I think we should just grin and bear it. 08717 22 3344. But, I mean, if they're going to practice penalties and they're going to lose in a penalty shootout, what is the point of practicing penalties?
I can't understand it. You look at... I mean, I really can't. I mean, A.J. Boothroyd is a professional coach, so when he says, I really don't know what went wrong, I mean, I don't know how to take that. I don't understand how we cannot understand it. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
How come we haven't got a coach bright enough to... I mean, here, only one win from the spot since 1990, OK?
Yeah.
And that's in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, OK? So only 9, sorry. So we won 1 out of 9. Surely some analyst somewhere must have gone to the videos over the years, ever since 1990, the World Cup semi-final, the Gaza one and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Italian 90.
Yeah, exactly. Shouldn't somebody have got all the videos and said, now let's look at this intrinsically and find out what the problem is? Well, if they've been
practicing them for 3 weeks, surely they've been doing that.
We'd have hoped so.
Surely they would be practicing some part of the psychological process.
Yeah.
But here's what old A.D. Boothroyd said, in addition to saying he had no idea about why we keep losing on penalties. He says, we've reached the semi-final, we've won the World Cup with the under-20s, and the under-17s did ever so well getting to a final. Says there's plenty to be optimistic about.
Well, not with the team you're running, there isn't.
Well, I'm not sure.
Take penalties.
There's not much to be optimistic about when the coach says, I have no idea why we keep losing on penalties.
I know.
I'd like to have somebody that knows a bit more about it than that, really. 08717 22 3344. Would you like to give the number out?
I'm going to give the number out now.
Okay.
Is it just that we're not quite as bright as the Germans?
Yes, I think that's true.
I mean, do they have a better education system?
I think they do.
And do their players end up brighter and then able to fox us?
I think that's true.
Giving the goalkeeper the eyes and all that.
They're clearly more psychologically prepared.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Psychologically, our players are incapable of winning penalty shootouts.
I think psychologically our players can't steal up to it and still might have nervous, dispositions that the Germans don't have because of the way they've been brought up. Maybe their parents are tougher with them.
Yeah,
but anyway, the number here is, and I give the number out in a non-mangle-mouthed version.
Yes.
I cannot stand to hear our number.
Can you hurry up, please?
Garbled out in mangle-mouthness because nobody knows what it is. So here it is.
Yeah.
08717. I'll ignore that. 22 33 44.
This is talkSPORT.
He has the score, Nathan Redmond, or England are out. Runs up right-footed, and saved by Poldark, diving away to his right-hand side. It doesn't matter the age group, it doesn't matter the year, the story inevitably is the same.
We worked it out beforehand. We don't just flick a coin. We'd done that many penalties. We knew who was going to take them and when. Well, normally the two boys that missed are the ones that would score. So it's just one of them things, I'm afraid.
This is the Two Mics on talkSPORT with Wix. Don't waste precious time. Try our online stock checker so you never have a wasted trip. We got lots of tweets coming in here. Here's one from somebody called Steptoe who says Porky went to a third-rate Polytechnic and scored his penalty at Old Trafford in front of 70,000 people.
That's absolutely right.
I mean, how has it become something about you? This is about England and the under-21 players missing a penalty.
Funnily enough, somebody got a picture of me scoring the penalty at Old Trafford last night, and then I got all sorts of accusations, traitor, because I was wearing a Manchester United shirt.
Ah, yes.
But the problem was...
Why were you wearing a Manchester United shirt?
It was a Vodafone sponsorship, and Vodafone were the sponsors of Manchester United at the time.
Ah.
So I had to... Now, I scored that it wasn't actually 70,000, it was 64,000 people. They hadn't filled in the corners by that time at Old Trafford. You know, it wasn't as big as it is now, although it's pretty big. And, you know, the nerves that you have to suppress to score a penalty in front of 64,000 people, it was nothing to me at all. Psychologically, I'm as tough as old boots.
Yeah, but if you
missed
missed that penalty, it wouldn't have made any difference to your life, would it?
Well, it would have done because, it was my one chance to take a penalty at a Premier League ground.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure I belted it. And I did, right down the goalkeeper's throat.
And who was the goalkeeper?
The goalkeeper was the under-18 England goalkeeper at the time.
Well, who was he?
I don't know.
You don't remember his name?
No. Well, why should I?
I mean, you're such a narcissist, aren't you? I mean, you think that the one time that you played in a Premier League stadium and you took a penalty against a Premier League, albeit a young goalkeeper, that you would remember the goalkeeper's name?
No, it didn't matter to me. I mean, I beat him. He was a loser. I was a winner. That's all you need to know. Alvin Martin was captain of the other team. He missed his penalty, crashed it against the bar, which gave me ultimate victory. So, that's quite an outstanding achievement, really. And I can't understand why professional footballers, who are actually paid to play the game, unlike me, who's a talented amateur, couldn't do the job.
All right, Russ says this. Do you agree that A.D. Boothroyd was trying to emulate Roy Hodgson's remarks about the respective England teams by saying, I have no idea?
He could have been.
And Viral says, Porky squirming his way out of giving £500 to charity is utterly disgraceful.
No, it's not. I'm a very generous charity giver, but I mean, you have to have incentives. And if the incentive is not activated or rewarded to, so to speak, then there's no point in giving over the money.
All right, well, let me put this to you, right?
Yeah.
You said that, you're feeling deflated this morning because the under-21s didn't win the tournament and didn't get to the final.
Yes.
The only reason you're feeling like that is because you got all excited because the under-20s team actually won the World Cup.
That's right.
So suddenly everyone in this country gets all excited about the national team again.
Yes.
But actually, if you're a proper sort of realist in life, you're not ever going to get too excited about any England team winning anything because there's no point, because they're not really going to win anything.
Well, no, you see, hope and expectations, what football's all about. Yeah. It's the hope that kills you, you know what I mean? Jane here says, no idea last June, no idea this June, probably no idea next June. Probably saying the same with Gareth, and that's Jane's.
Well, exactly.
Expressing national
Anthony
despair,
says
really.
If you're practicing penalties, you should at least be practicing putting them in the top corner.
Yeah.
Well, that's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because surely the point of practicing penalties...
No, definitely not.
Surely the point of practicing penalties is that you practice the mechanics of the penalty taking so that you're not... If you do get nervous, you still basically are... You can shut your eyes and you can make it work. Yeah. Because you practiced it so many times.
Yeah, but putting it in the top corner is the most dangerous thing you can do.
Why?
Well, because you'll sky it, half the time. That's an extremely skillful way of taking penalties, but an extremely silly way to take them if you miss.
Yeah.
Glyn here says, Pickford said, this is the goalkeeper, the hero of the night, it was just pot luck in the end. No, it wasn't. A test of football skill, says Glyn, the correspondent. He says his attitude's all wrong. Well, it's not, because sometimes goalkeepers just say, I'm going left or I'm going right.
Yeah.
And if they get the direction right, then their reflexes will help them make the save. That's
but
the point.
A lot of it is safety, isn't it, first, for the goalkeeper, because they don't want to make themselves look daft.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how many times do you see a penalty being scored straight down the middle? If the goalkeeper had stood still, he would have saved it.
Sure, but goalkeepers do think they can... the eyes thing is all about, trying to spot what the kicker's going to do, and the kicker trying to spot which way the goalkeeper's going to go.
Yeah.
So, the skill, if you can read it like that. Another one here from Steve. He says, Boothroyd was the innovator who used to keep his Watford players and fans back after the game to practice penalties under pressure.
Oh, yeah.
Used to ask the crowd to stay at the end and say, look, we're going to practice a few penalties.
Really?
I mean, that's quite innovative,
Well,
isn't
I suppose it is, yeah. Richard says, tell Porky the goalkeeper was Kevin Pilkington.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much indeed.
And so where is Kevin Pilkington now?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, he didn't make a career like I did, obviously, or else we'd have heard from him.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe you just don't know where he is. Maybe somebody can tell us where Kevin Pilkington has turned out.
Yes.
David says this, German players have to stay in education for longer,
Yeah.
which I believe makes them more mentally strong.
Yes.
That may well be true.
Well, it could
But, I
be.
mean, there's plenty of people who've been educated terribly well
Yes.
who are not mentally strong.
Yes.
It doesn't guarantee it, does it?
It doesn't guarantee it, indeed. Lady Laura, another
Yeah.
regular correspondent, she says, love the two mics. Thank you very much, Lady Laura. I'm glossing the bedroom now, so she's obviously painting the bedroom.
Yeah, she's painting the bedroom yesterday.
She say, and I see old Porky's again reading out the number. I think I will have completed the bedroom by the time he's finished it.
I know, absolutely
Very
right.
harsh.
Absolutely right. When playing a match, they can pass the ball perfectly to a player 40 yards away, says Danny, but they can't hit a penalty in the top corner with pace. Why is that?
I don't know.
Well, you should be able to explain it.
Well, no, I can't explain it. What I said to you is, my frustration this morning is not having been able to work out since the classic penalty shootout, July the 4th, 1990, World Cup semi-final in Italy, as you quite rightly say, how we haven't managed to move on from losing a penalty shootout. And in fact, how we've gone backwards on it all these years, it's just mind-boggling.
It really is incredible, isn't it? Paulie says this, that under-18s goalkeeper for England probably never played again after the utter humiliation of Mike Parry scoring against him.
I think I might be right. I think I might be right.
Imagine taking one look at you and not being able to save a penalty from you.
Yeah.
I mean, unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
Well,
we want to hear from some people out there, though. I mean, because Adi Boothroyd is saying he has no idea why England keep losing at penalties.
Yes.
Well, surely he should find some idea and work out exactly why, if he's going to practice penalties, exactly what he should be practicing.
That's right.
08717 22 3344. Johnny says, you're being a bit harsh on Boothroyd. He made them practice for penalties. Not everything you practice for in life comes off in reality. Well, no, it doesn't. However, it doesn't bode very well if he comes out just before the game against Germany to tell us that they've been practicing for penalties, so they're prepared in every way, and then it turns out they're not prepared in every way.
Well, you're absolutely right, because it raised our anticipation level it reduced our fear level of getting to the penalty shootout, because we're all thinking, Adie's the first England manager at any level to have worked this out.
Yeah.
He's had the boys practicing for 3 weeks. We don't fear penalty shootout. And there was a sort of feeling, wasn't there, towards the end of extra time, the last 5 or 10 minutes, that we were playing for a penalty shootout.
And why play for a penalty shootout if you're going to lose it?
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense at all. It seems to me the strategy's wrong, the tactics are wrong, and as many people have said before, basically Germany and Spain are years and years ahead of England. Donovan says that. Not enough positivity going forward.
That's right.
And they weren't particularly positive as a team, were they?
You're absolutely right. Now, talking internationally, right, I'm going to talk to you in a minute about a new plan that's been unveiled this morning. Oh, yeah. Old Pep Southgate might want to take the England team to the north, right, to play in northern stadiums.
Oh, yes.
In the friendlies that we're going to be playing before.
What about Wembley?
Wembley will, I think, host one of the competitive games or friendly or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it's suggested we might be going to the Stadium of Light and perhaps Old Trafford.
Why is he going to the Stadium of Light?
Because they're in the north east and northwest of England.
Why is he not going to St James Park if he's going north?
Well, it might be St James Park. We don't know. It's only in the talking stage at the moment. You've got to hire the grounds and all that kind of stuff, to play England internationals. Now, again, I'm all for this, and you will probably say, why are we kowtowing to people in the north of England?
No, that's not at all what I would say. What I would say is that I thought Wembley was a place where England games had to be played in order to get the money in through the box office, through the gate, so that they can pay off the loans that they borrowed to build the place.
Well, there's a great deal of truth in that, but when England go and play elsewhere, they do, of course, get a lot of revenue. They then have to pay for the hire of the ground.
Not as much, though, surely.
Well, the thing is, the equation's interesting. Although the FA kind of own Wembley through a sort of holding company, they still have to pay to play there. They still have to pay for the use of the stadium.
Sure.
Paying for the use of Wembley Stadium, as Spurs are going to find out next season, is an awful lot more expensive than paying for the use of the Stadium of Light.
Yes.
So the equation, economically might come round. But I must say I'm delighted that England are taking the team on the road again.
Oh, good. You'll be going to those games, will you?
Well, I hope I might, because in the years when Wembley was closed down, I went to about 10 England internationals around this country in grounds as far away as Southampton to the Stadium of Light. Southampton to the Stadium of Light.
Sunderland.
From St James's Park.
Time, by the way.
St James's Park down to somewhere like
Exeter.
No, we didn't play in Exeter. I think we played
Truro.
No, don't be ridiculous. No, there's nowhere more south than Southampton, but we did play. I think we played at Reading. Yeah, okay.
Great.
Yeah.
How exciting for you.
It was.
Porky's very excited. He wants to go around the country watching England play.
England Army on the march.
It's not going to be very exciting stuff, but give us a call, 08717 22 33 44. This is talkSPORT. talkSPORT, we are the two mics, and of course, coming up a little bit later on in the show, Porky Vision is going to be here.
Yes.
We're going to be speaking to an MP as well a little bit later on about FIFA and Qatar and the whole business. Russ, I'm sorry to tell you, has tweeted a picture of you celebrating your penalty after scoring it.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
It's a pretty nice picture, actually, to be honest. But it's kind of horrible to see you in a Manchester United shirt.
Well, it is. I admit it. I wouldn't have done it if it hadn't been for charity. That was it was a half-time shootout, penalty shootout. Money went to charity, and I had to bite my lip and all that kind of stuff. But people understood.
Russ says, I can imagine Wayne Rooney looking not dissimilar to this in about 40 years' time.
Well, I tell you what, if Wayne Rooney's in as good a shape as I am in 40 years' time, he will have looked after his body.
Hang on. Yesterday you were telling us you were falling apart.
Well,
What is the update, by the way, on your medical condition?
Well, the sciatica has been kept in check.
Has it?
It's not completely gone yet, but it will in a couple of days.
Right.
You know, I have to do gentle exercises and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I lie on my back and I bring my right leg up over my left knee and point it towards my left shoulder.
What?
The problem is my left shoulder
How
is
do you do
suffering.
that?
It's frozen, eh?
You mean you pull it up to your knee? You
Yes.
don't actually. It's not your leg that you're pulling all the way up.
I pull the bottom of my leg up over my right leg over my left leg knee. Okay?
Yeah.
And then I point it back towards my left shoulder.
Oh, I see, yeah.
But the problem is, because I've got frozen shoulder on the left side, that can be an inconvenience.
So when you say if Wayne Rooney's in as good a shape as you don't really mean that, do you?
Well, you know, I shouldn't think that only one-third of his heart will be working by the time he gets to my age.
Yeah.
Because, of course, he's been a very fit man all his life. And whether or not, you know, he'll suffer the sort of nerve jangling pains that I've had to put up with over the last week, well, nobody knows.
Now, the housekeeper has tweeted this. Kevin Pilkington left United in 1998. It was probably Luke Steele that Porky beat.
Oh, really?
Any ideas?
I don't think the goalkeeper was a United goalkeeper. I think he was an England goalkeeper.
Oh, okay.
Because one here says, Porky, Pilkington played 400 games in the lower leagues before retiring, so he couldn't have been that bad. And that comes from Nobby Blue, who's a Carlisle fan. Well, thank you very much indeed for letting me know, Nobby.
Pilkington is now retired, says another one here from Andy. He started at United, but as he let in a penalty by a man who can hardly walk, he was sold. Hashtag Porky Jinx.
Quite right. Morning, Mikes. Can Porky give some words of wisdom for my daughter, Erin, who was born over the weekend? The newest Two Mikes fan. Thanks, Johnny. Well, John, all I can say is congratulations on becoming a father, and your darling little daughter, Erin, I wish her a very happy and fulfilling life, and all things that are good, I hope will happen to
Well,
her.
that's very kind of you.
Yes.
Now, let's get back to this Gareth Southgate idea
come on,
that England are going to go and play in different parts of the country.
Right.
Surely this is partly because Spurs are going to be playing much, much more at Wembley. They're going to be playing, obviously, every second week, I guess, more or less, and certainly twice a month, maybe 3 times in some months, which must mean that England are now being pushed out of the timetable, aren't they?
Well, they're not being pushed out of the timetable, but I think it means that the pressure on revenues to Wembley is not as great if they've released the stadium for a year to a Premier League club, OK? But, you know, once again, when I told you about this morning, you know, just shrugged your shoulders and said, what for? The what for bit is that you have to remember, Mike, that the great body of football fans in this country for 40 or 50 years came from successful northern clubs. Yeah. London have only really broken the mould of north-west and north-east domination since, I would say, the turn of this century. Before that, it was all Manchester United, Liverpool, Everton.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Manchester City.
Spurs were a very successful club way back in the 60s, weren't they?
Yeah, but then not between the 60s and the end of the 90s they weren't. I mean, you know, apart from a couple of FA Cup wins. I mean, the great body of football, this country, was invented and built up by the working class northern people in this country, particularly in the northwest.
Aston Villa, you wouldn't call them northern, would you?
Well, no, they're Midlands, obviously.
Nottingham Forest, you wouldn't call them northern.
Well, of course you wouldn't. They're East Midlands.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So to say it's a northern domination is wrong.
No, all the success happened in the north. Liverpool dominated
Aston Villa.
Well, when did they dominate?
Well, they didn't. Well, they won a lot of stuff, didn't they, in the 70s?
No, they won some stuff. They won a league and they won the European Cup.
Forest managed to win 2 European Cups back to back.
You're talking about pockets of 5 years at most, OK?
Right.
I'm talking about pockets of 50 years. And I'm talking about the domination of the northwest of England. And so you take the England team back there to where the roots are. You've got to remember...
Yeah, but Manchester United for years weren't even in the first division, were they? I mean, they didn't dominate everything in the times that you're talking about.
They did post-war.
Well, no, if you take but there were long periods of time when they were, the middle of the first division, they got relegated. There was plenty of times when Manchester United were not dominant at all.
Manchester United was extremely dominant in the 60s.
Yeah.
They fell away again in the 70s, 80s.
That's what I'm saying.
And came back in the 90s and have been dominant ever since.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but we're not really splitting hairs here, but I mean, that's 20 years where they weren't dominant at all.
Yeah, but you're talking about, 2 years of success for Aston Villa compared to 6 decades of success for the northwest of England. If Liverpool weren't dominant, Manchester United were. If Manchester United weren't, Everton were. If Everton weren't, it was Manchester City. Domination born of the Industrial Revolution when the great Lancashire cotton barons decided, to put money into football. And
I think you're
why all the best
weaving a very nice little story around what is a few facts, some of which are not correct.
No. And all I'm saying is, I think it's a great thing that England are going to the north of England prior to the World Cup in Moscow, going back to see the people, who are their birthright and their roots and all that. And once again, I'm fed up with fed up with your anti-northern bias and the fact that you say, all the games should be played at Wembley.
Well,
I wish you'd just get off your hobby horse about this.
Well, the games are meant to be played at Wembley in order to pay back the money that the FA has borrowed to pay for the Wembley Stadium.
That's not your concern.
Well, it is my
your
concern.
Is taking the team around the country.
Well, when are they going to pay this money off then?
It's going to be paid off on a structured basis. And I've already told you, they get money from Spurs they didn't expect to get. Could you please, people, get on the phone here and support me in this? Once again, the highly biased to southern location.
I'm sorry, Wembley's in London. It happens to be in London. You can't move it,
Mike Graham is saying that, what a boring time it is to take the England team north. Give us a call, please.
That's not what I said. I said there's no point to it.
08717 22 3344. Do you support my view that not only should the England team be taken north to Manchester and to the northeast, Sunderland or Newcastle, but we should do more of it and keep doing it. That's my view.
I bet you any money that there'll be plenty of fans of clubs in the north of England who will say, actually, we don't particularly want England to come and play here because we don't even have any interest in going to watch them because they're not very interesting.
That's a silly thing to say. What you might have said is, well, northern people like to travel down to London, to the south, and take their children.
No, it's not an issue of whether you're a northern person or not. What I'm saying is, if you're, there are hundreds and thousands of fans of clubs who are not interested in watching England play.
That's not true.
So if they are interested in watching England play, they will take the trouble to travel to London to watch them play at Wembley because it's a special day out. They can bring their kids. Yep. Sometimes the deal they get is very good. But why would they bother going to see them in their own hometown?
Because it's a great event.
No, it's not.
And the atmosphere.
It's a great
is
event
better.
if it's at Wembley. It's not a great event if it's anywhere.
Rubbish. I've seen England play at least 8 other grounds in this country outside of Wembley, and on each one it was a fantastic atmosphere, better than Wembley. Because the problem is the fans who go to see them at Wembley live locally, and it becomes like just another home game for our team.
That's rubbish. So you think Wembley is full of people from Wembley? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I'm telling you that.
Old cobblers.
It's not. You never go. You've never been.
That's not true.
No, you haven't.
It's not true.
How many times have you been?
I've been to Wembley with you to see an England 0-0 draw with some ridiculous team like Lithuania. Right. One of the worst games I've ever seen in my life.
Once.
When you gave me a hard time for not standing up.
But we've also done
shows from Wembley, so I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. Richard says this: instead of standing in the centre circle before taking penalties, the players should be helping each other focus. Where are you going to put it, etc. Very good idea. Yeah. We want to hear from you, of course. 08717 22 33 44. We'll take your calls next. A couple of people have got things to say about your northern theory of dominance, right? AG says, if you're talking about dominance, Arsenal won the league 5 times in the 30s, says Chris. And also Neil says this, Arsenal are England's third most successful club in terms of trophies won. Yes. They've hardly been that successful recently.
Yeah, well, it's it swings and roundabouts and cyclical.
Yeah, well, that's not what you said. You said it was all dominance
the calendar in
from
football.
the north. Marky says this, one of the great benefits of living in the north is we are less likely to bump into Porky and we are not subjected to watching England.
Oh, that's very nice.
So there you go. But let's take some calls here because we got a load of them. 08717 22 3344. Paul is a Liverpool fan. Hi, Paul.
Hi, mate.
Hello,
Paul.
What would you like to say?
Yes, I'm right behind you, Mike, about a little bit of tour for England.
Yes.
Wembley's not the home of football. they were playing international long before they came along, and Lords is a home of cricket, but they don't play every Test match of cricket at Lords.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the big games, yes, we'll play them at Wembley 3:00, so the kids from up north got the chance to go.
Mm-hmm.
But the lesser games, they should be played at a tour of the stadiums all around the country, so local lads can go and watch them. Because Wembley just got the monopoly, and it's just not fair.
Yeah, but Paul, the point is that Wembley surely is the home of England's national team, right? And they've also, because of the way they've structured the deal to build the new stadium, they had to agree to play a load of games there in order to pay back the money. So what happens to that?
Yeah, I do get what you're saying, but that's been created by the big wigs at the FA.
Sure, but that's the reality, though. I mean, you may not like it, but that's the way it is.
Well, if you're telling me that the events they do at Wembley, that means that no games apart from they've got the FA Cup final now.
You're not being evacuated, are you, Paul?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
And I just think it's the chances are taken away from people, other parts of the country. If it's a Saturday, that's fine. A 3:00 game at Wembley, they've got the opportunity to get there. The last train from King's Cross to Newcastle on a night is 10:00.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Northwest at Euston, but if you know what I'm saying, where I'm getting from.
I know exactly what you're saying, and also,
if that's the case, they might as well do away with Wembley altogether. They might as well knock it down and sell the property for flats, mightn't you? And say, well, England, if it's not important enough for England to play there, when it's meant to be their headquarters. No. I mean, England rugby play at Twickenham, right? They don't carry around the team all around the country to see whether they can play their tests in other parts of the country.
But once again, you've lost the drift. We're talking about friendly internationals here. We're not talking about key games in qualifying for competitions.
Doesn't matter. It's either
and the friendlies can go north.
No, it's either headquarters or it's not. Pete is a Man United fan. Hello, Pete.
Good morning to you both.
Hello.
Yes.
What would you like to say?
I can't believe I'm actually going to say this, but I actually agree with Porky.
Thank you. Pete.
You're bang on there. I mean, England, the qualifying games, friendlies should be taken away from Wembley.
Yes.
And played around the country.
Would you like to see them played at Old? Would you like to see them played at Old?
Semi-finals being played at Wembley.
Yeah. I agree with you. I don't think the semi-finals of the Cup should be played at Wembley. I think Wembley should be perceived as a special place, right? So it should only have the Cup finals.
Games.
Well, yeah, but it should have all of England's games because England are the national side. It is their national headquarters. It's like I was saying, you don't get rugby games played elsewhere outside of Twickenham, do you?
Well, they can't, can they? I mean, you tell me a ground that rugby can play.
Yeah, there's no other ground.
They could take it anywhere.
What do you mean take it anywhere? Go on.
They can play rugby anywhere you like.
When they take it to a football ground. They don't take it to a rugby ground.
That's what I'm saying. But if they wanted to have the same idea, they could take it to Old Trafford. They could take it to the Etihad, anywhere you like.
Well, they have done.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But they don't play international rugby outside of Twickenham.
No, because there's nowhere to play it. Pete, you're absolutely right there. Do you know what I like as well? The fact that England come to the north means that the northern fans are terribly anxious to show.
You try get the train home from Wembley after an England match.
Yes, I know. The fans in the north.
Well, why don't you stay over?
No chance.
Well, they might not be able to afford to stay over because it's a very expensive business staying in a hotel in London.
You can't get a train back.
You can't get a train back. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Do you want to see games?
Do
you want to see England? Do you want to see England, Pete? Do you want to see England games at Old Trafford?
I do, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, of course you do.
When Beckham got the free kick against Greece.
I was as well. In fact, I was sitting right behind Sven-Göran Eriksson.
Okay. I actually agree with you on the sciatica there. I suffered from it. Yeah. It's absolutely agony when you get it.
Yes.
So I did go out to you, but stop moaning about it.
Well, hang on, Pete. Hang on, Pete. I haven't moaned about it today at all until you just brought it up.
Just stop moaning.
You just reminded me I've got a pain in my, iris.
Let's talk to Robert, who's a Spurs fan. Hi, Robert.
Oh,
Robert's not there. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, come back to us, Robert,
we'll
please.
Come back. Jane says this. She says, I've just turned on the radio and Porky's shouting at MG.
Yeah.
Has he got some kind of Napoleon complex?
No, I've got a Napoleon complex. I've got a sort of, can you talk common sense complex, please, which you don't seem to be able to do with this issue regarding...
Well, the fact that I'm talking perfect sense seems to be going over the heads of an awful lot of people.
Yeah.
Let's talk to Jamie, who's a Man United fan.
Okay.
In Maidenhead, that coastal town that you like.
That's right, yeah.
Hello, Jamie.
Hi, good morning.
Yeah, morning.
Hi,
what would you like to say?
I kind of agree with Mr. Porgy. I think that the game should be spread. If Spurs are going to be using Wembley, then I think that the game should be spread across the nation, like Old Trafford, maybe up to Newcastle, somewhere like that.
Yep.
Just to give the fans all over the country a chance to go and see England if they can't afford to get down to Wembley for whatever reason.
Do you not think that's cruel and unusual punishment to be forced to watch England playing?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I still think people who, the people who can't afford to get down, I do think they should be allowed the opportunity to watch England closer to where they live, possibly.
So do I as well. And our last caller, Jamie, pointed out that, Beckham scored the his most famous ever free kick to get us through to the World Cup finals at Old Trafford, and the atmosphere that day was sensational. Absolutely sensational. Much better atmosphere than I've ever experienced at an England game at Wembley.
Exactly. I think it's full of prawn sandwich eaters down at Wembley anyway, so they're not even out.
It's a bit of a prejudicial. It's a bit prejudicial, that, Jamie. Don't you think? It's a bit of a generalisation.
Yeah.
Well, I think the more north you go, the more passionate the fans are. I think.
I don't think that's true. I think that's a nonsense. Absolute rubbish. Have you never been to Stamford Bridge?
No, I haven't, no.
Right, well, they're pretty passionate down there, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Let's have a word with Robert, who's a Spurs fan. They're pretty passionate at White Hart Lane as well. Robert, a very good morning to you.
Morning, guys.
Yeah.
Hi, Rob.
Is that true? That we just had a last caller who said, Jamie said that the London fans are not passionate?
No, I don't think that's necessarily true. I've got lots of friends up in the northeast, and I do think it's just, the passion spread evenly, but I hate to say that I do agree with Porky on this one.
Thank you.
Which is probably a first for you, Porky. I think everyone seems to agree with you.
Yes, well, exactly. They have been all week.
He's on this medication, which is actually calming him down a bit and making him sound normal.
No, they have done all week. All week, people have been agreeing with me. But the thing is, Rob, you're a Spurs fan. You say I don't enjoy Wembley. The atmosphere is terrible. You're going to go. You're going to go to every game, every home game at Wembley next season. How are you feeling about that?
I'm not looking forward to it. It's a necessary evil, really, at the end of the day. If we want to be moving into a big stadium, we've got to take this step. I'm slightly worried about the Wembley curse, but we'll deal with that when we get to it. But, I'm not looking forward to the season at Wembley. I don't go and watch England anymore at Wembley. I just think they just suck all the atmosphere out of it. And you look back at when the England team did travel around, the atmosphere was absolutely amazing at all these other grounds.
Yeah.
You could even feel it watching on TV.
Yes.
Now, getting into London, for me, is still expensive living in the South East, let alone for those coming from all around the rest of the country. I'd be more inclined to visit other cities throughout England and actually make a bit of a weekend of it.
Yeah.
So it gives other people in the South East an opportunity to go to Liverpool, to go to Manchester, to go to Newcastle, when they might not have done otherwise.
Yes. No, I totally agree with you on every aspect of what you've just said.
But, the point is people are saying they can't come to Wembley because they can't afford to come to Wembley. Surely, you might be in a privileged position, Robert, where you can, tootle off around the country for the weekend. But, a lot of people in the South East won't be able to go to the games either, will they?
No, that's true. But I certainly think that London, the prices are extortionate. And to be fair, you try and get somewhere around Wembley to stay, you're paying 2-3 times as much as you would do up in Manchester.
Yeah.
The area's not as nice. Let's be fair, Wembley isn't the nicest part of London, and the infrastructure is pretty shocking considering that they put Wembley right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Like this stadium.
Well, I wouldn't say that. You've got the Jubilee line, you've got the British Rail that takes you straight into Marylebone.
Yeah, but you're not exactly in London.
Try to get tube after a game, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have tried.
It's not impossible.
Well,
it's
not
nightmare.
impossible.
It's a nightmare.
You just have to queue up for a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
that's a nightmare.
Coming out of the stadium.
Particularly when it's raining.
It's not ideal, is it? You'd have thought they'd have thought about that. And I know that Spurs have still got that issue when they move into the new stadium because the tubes and the transport up there is still going to be shocking. They've not dealt with that yet. So
that's right, absolutely.
It's something that we've got to deal with, but I just think that they've not thought about that when they had all that money pumped into a stadium and left the rest of the area as it was.
That's right. I totally agree with you, mate.
Well, I'm not the biggest fan of Wembley either, but in which case, if you don't like Wembley, what on earth have the FA done by spending so much money building it, now renting it out to Spurs, and probably next season renting it out to Chelsea, and moving all the England games out of it? And most England fans that we speak to say the atmosphere is awful.
But I love
Wembley.
I love Wembley as a national monument. It's the best football stadium in the world.
Yeah, but it's not, is it?
With its huge arc over the top.
Yes, it is. It's clearly not the best stadium in the world because the atmosphere is awful.
No,
as you've quite
I don't
rightly
agree.
said.
You go to the atmosphere of the Cup final, the FA Cup final, it's still brilliant.
Really?
When you've got a really competitive game, England don't play enough competitive games because the structure of football these days is play 8, flakish teams and then go to the World Cup finals.
Well, how's that going to be any better at St James's Park than it is at Wembley if it's not a very competitive game?
Because the fans up there greet it with such anticipation because it's not a regular thing.
I agree.
And they add an extra 10, 15, 20, 25... 50% to the atmospherics of the ground by their sheer enthusiasm.
I see. Well, they may be very enthusiastic if it's anything like that game we went to. It was 0-0. Absolutely
awful.
awful.
Batting on about that, because that's the only England game you've ever been
to.
I've been to about 50 England games, right?
Well, and most of them haven't been very exciting, have they? Martin says this: Spurs fans the world over are begging Porky not to back them next season.
Yes.
Wembley curse plus Porky jinx equals disaster.
Yeah, well, could have a problem.
Mike says this: Wembley is no longer a place visiting teams fear. England should go on the road. There's more atmosphere and passion at other stadiums. Yeah, but there's not going to be much atmosphere or passion if it's a friendly against somebody that's not very good.
Yes, there will be. Because it happens there so rarely. Honestly, the local people, the local populace, they munch it up like it's a snack.
I think that's very patronising.
No.
This is talkSPORT. Good morning, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry. You're listening to the Two Mikes on talkSPORT. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be talking to Damien Collins MP, Chairman of the Commons Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee. He's going to be telling us what he makes of the whole Qatari situation after that FIFA report was made public yesterday. Looks like he's going to agree with me that possibly the Qatar World Cup should not go ahead in 2022. We'll also be finding out whether there are going to be any charges brought against anyone in the case of Hillsborough. That'll take place in about half an hour's time. Also, of course, Porky Vision coming up a little bit later on. 0871722 3344. We'll keep talking about England and whether they should be playing at Wembley or around the country. Lots more. You're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on talkSPORT. A bit of a split in the audience's view of how you're treating people from the north of England. We've got a couple here saying...
there is.
Yes, there is. Simon says, Porky this morning talking like a true man of the people.
Thank you.
Hashtag he's still a plank, though. James says, Porky's very condescending towards people from the north.
No, I'm not.
He seems to perceive them as peasants who can't afford to leave.
No, I don't. I don't perceive you as peasants at all. In fact, I am planning to make my retirement in the north of England. So why would I...
When are you going to do that?
Sorry?
When are you going to do that?
When the time comes, okay? Yeah.
When is that, then?
Well, I'll tell you what.
When the time comes.
Well, when the time comes, and it does, mate, you're on the scrap heap. So you better.
I wasn't on the scrap heap before you came out of retirement the last time.
You better hope that I stick around for a while longer, okay?
No, you were the guy that was on the scrap heap without me, mate.
No.
When you hired that other bloke called Mike.
Listen.
And it went nowhere.
Can I tell you, a scrap heap to me is foreign territory. I've never been there.
Have you not?
No.
I thought you'd have a normal spot reserved, actually, on a scrap heap.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you who should be on the scrap heap.
Yeah.
A lady called Sarah Knight, and I don't wish to be rude to ladies.
Sarah Knight?
Sarah Knight, yeah.
Who's she?
She's the woman who chairs England Tiddlywinks Association, and she is utterly ludicrously trying to...
Are you not a member of that, then?
I am certainly not. I never would be. It's a child's game. The England Tiddlywinks Association are lobbying the Olympic Committee to allow them to enter the Olympics as an Olympic sport. I've never heard such a ridiculous proposition in all my life.
I'm sure you must have done. Did we not have this conversation about something like... Was it not bridge that wanted to be recognised
it was bridge,
as an Olympic sport? And has it not been recognised as an Olympic sport?
What bridge wanted was it was a financial consideration.
Yes.
They wanted to be able to
qualify for funding,
to get rid of qualify for funding, get rid of the VAT charges on their game. So that had another particular purpose. But this one is utterly ridiculous. And can I say to Ms. Knight that when you start making futile and ridiculous attempts to include games like Tiddlywinks in the Olympic agenda, you're simply rubbishing the whole idea of the Olympian spirit.
I don't think you are.
And making it very, very difficult for other sports that are more worthy to get into the Olympics and get Olympic funding.
No, Sarah Knight is doing her job, right? Because as the chair of the Tiddlywinks Association of England, then it's up to her to actually promote the sport. So
but it's not a sport, Mike.
Well, she may believe it's a sport.
Tiddlywinks is a kid's game. You get on your hands and knees on the carpet and you play with counters.
Well, presumably when she plays it, it's not on your hands and knees on the carpet.
Well, I don't know any other way it's played. Have you ever played it any other way?
Well, you play it on a table, don't you?
No, I've never played it on a table. Have you?
Well, yeah, of course so.
Rubbish.
Because you're no good on a carpet. If you try and play it on a carpet, the surface is too giving, right?
No, it's not.
So
it's
what
not.
you do
That's part of it.
No, it's not. No, you play it on a table.
Yeah.
Because on a table you then get you're able to get more length out of the when you press the button against the other button.
Yes,
and you can get
counter,
it to fire
the counter
further.
against the counter.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is on the carpet, the sheer skill of Tiddlywinks as a kid was always to judge how much spring there was in the carpet when when you've got the pressure of your push. Absolutely right.
I would imagine if you spoke to this woman, Sarah Knight, she would explain to you that actually a hard surface is what they require for a proper game of Tiddlywinks.
How can you include any sport as a potential Olympic competition when it involves an egg cup?
Well, she says the Olympics
ridiculous.
holds up the values of a balance between body and mind in these sports, which is key in Tiddlywinks.
That's a nonsense.
Great manual dexterity is needed at elite level to move winks around.
Oh, what a rubbish. She says your mental ability is tested as it's actually a very tactical game.
Maybe we should have a game of it.
Well, yeah, we will. We will at some stage this week,
I'm
okay?
sure you've probably got some Tiddlywinks knocking around somewhere.
No, I haven't, because
you've got all those other games from the 1950s.
No, after the age of 3, I gave it up. That's why I can't understand anybody aged 31 pushing the case for Tiddlywinks. Who are these morons who actually
you've been very harsh.
Are members of the British Tiddlywinks Association? The England Tiddlywinks Association.
Well, they're people who play Tiddlywinks.
Well, haven't they got anything better to do?
Well, maybe they'd like to take up a hobby and be very good at it and become completely and utterly sort of champions at it.
If somebody came to me,
they go into the Olympics with it.
Somebody came to me and I said, "Oh yeah, and what hobbies do you do outside of your work? You know, you seem to have a good CV here." And they said, "Oh, well, I do a bit of walking, you know, and I like reading, and I play Tiddlywinks."
Right.
I said, "What?
Yes.
You play Tiddlywinks? Sorry, do you have some sort of, you know, I want to get back into childhood type syndrome problem?"
Do you not think you might be missing something about the dexterity and about the mental capacity that you require?
No, next you'll have blow football. Let's get blow football into the Olympics.
Well, why not? I mean, the Olympics is discredited anyway. I mean, I don't care what sports they have in the Olympics.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, did you know that roller hockey was included in the Olympics? And you wouldn't call roller hockey a sport, would you?
Roller hockey? What's that?
Hockey. Well, it's playing hockey on rollerblades.
On rollerblades? Well, that is a sport because that
involves... How is that a sport?
Well, because it's a variation of hockey.
Uh-huh.
There's ice hockey, there's field hockey, and there could be rollerball hockey.
What about
I've got
tug
no
of
problem
war?
with that. Tug of war, nonsense.
Well, that was in the Olympics.
It was, and it's been pushed out.
And now it's been pushed out.
Yeah, because it's not a proper sport.
Club swinging was also in the Olympics, right?
Yeah, well, that was years ago.
Yeah, I know, but it doesn't matter. The point is that there is a precedent for some of these things that you would say shouldn't be in the Olympics to be in the Olympics. People jumping up and down on trampolines was in the Olympics
Ms. Knight added, "We hope they can see how great Tiddlywinks is and recognise it as a sport."
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm sure Ms. Knight is a very nice person.
Well, you said that she should be put on the scrap heap earlier.
No, I said...
That's what you said.
I said we were talking about the scrap heap, you should put Tiddlywinks on the scrap heap because it's simple. It's a pastime. It's like saying, "Oh, let's put Snap into the Olympics."
Well,
it's a childish pastime.
Well, bridge.
Well, bridge is an adult...
it's a card game.
It's an adult challenge, mental challenge. I don't think it should be in the Olympics. Like, I don't think chess should be in the Olympics, but at least it's an adult pursuit.
Well, I think there's a lot of things in the Olympics that shouldn't be in the Olympics.
Yeah, but children play Tiddlywinks. It's ludicrous.
Well, it does seem a bit odd, but all I'm saying is that the Olympics is already a discredited sort of scenario.
Everybody...
So to chuck in another sport, which nobody was really interested in, wouldn't make any difference to me.
Everybody out there must surely agree with me. Any one person who's listening to this show now and says, "Oh, Tiddlywinks in the Olympics, that's a good idea," I suggest you go and see your doctor. Because your marbles are starting to move around in your head.
Oh, you've got marbles in the Olympics
as well. Don't put marbles in the Olympics at all.
It's talkSPORT.
Yeah. OK, folks, you are listening to the Two Mics. We are, of course, on talkSPORT and delighted to say we are with Wix. Now then, don't waste precious time. And the way you cannot waste precious time is to try our online stock checker so you never have a wasted trip.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, we've got lots and lots of very, very interesting tweets that have been coming in. We've got Porky Vision coming up a little bit later on. We'll read some of these tweets out at the Two Mics is where you want to send them, or at Mike Parry 8, or at IROMG, or even at talkSPORT. A lot of people saying this sciatica has somehow cleared your brain and your mental capacity has massively increased of recent days because of all the pain that you're in.
Well, it could be that, but I mean, I'm taking to the cleaners every day on the debates
of
the, debating the issues.
The problem that you have is that you're obsessed with what you regard as being one-upmanship.
No, not at all.
And getting lots of people to agree with you. Just because lots of people agree with you doesn't mean you're right, OK? That's the first thing to tell you.
It means I've got my finger on the pulse, which is what I pride myself on.
No, what you like to be is popular, right? So you like to take a popular stance on things, but that's not always the right one to take.
Yes.
I'm going to introduce you now to somebody, though, who is someone I don't think you would have ever come across before. He is a man by the name of James Wannerton, right? And he's somebody that experiences something which is very hard to say and even more difficult to understand, which is lexical gustatory synesthesia.
Synesthesia.
Which means that you actually taste words as well as hearing them.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure I can
taste
understand
words
what it's all
or
about.
word sounds.
Yeah. Let's talk to James and find out what it's all about. James, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Hi, James.
You did well with that pronunciation.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah. Now, I understand from some information I'm looking at here that some famous people have also got this condition, which I suppose is the right word to use, including Marilyn Monroe, Jimi Hendrix, Mozart, Stevie Wonder and Tori Amos. Tell us, first of all, James, what exactly does it mean?
Yeah,
sure. What we're talking about here is a neurological condition called synesthesia. And what it means that two or more of the senses, the 5 main senses, two or more of them are connected together by a hardwired link. Yeah. So, for example, when you look at something, you look at it and you can touch it, you can smell it, and you can taste it even. What your brain does is then take all of those 5 independent sources and it mixes them together, comes out with what you're looking at. That's how it works it out. Yeah. But in some people's cases, when they look at something, they might see it in a different colour because it's automatically connected to a colour part of their brain. Right. And in my particular case, whenever I hear a sound, it's not just words, it's any sound. Words are very strong, but whenever I hear a sound, I get an immediate mouthfeel, and it's just like I'm eating something.
What, like a taste?
Yeah, it's a real mouthfeel. For example, listening to you there, one of you there, okay, although both have got very similar voices, actually.
That's possibly the most insulting thing you could have said to me.
No, that's I understand that. Please go on.
But what you've got, what your voices are coming over to me as, they're very, very eggy. It's a bit like scrambled egg, funnily enough. And one of you has got a slightly gravelier voice than the other one, and that's creating a sort of dust sensation, a bit like sugar, sort of crumbly stuff. And the other one has got a very fine coating over the top of it, a bit like plaster. So it's a non-food one.
Well, I'll tell you what, James, that worries me.
Eggs and dust.
Eggs and dust, because I've never eaten an egg in my life, so I don't know what an egg tastes like. Seriously, I've had an aversion to eggs all my life. What about this, James? Supposing I walked out onto the street and saw a yellow Ferrari passing by, would I then have the taste of banana in my mouth? Would I assimilate the yellow Ferrari with the yellow peel on a banana?
Well, you could do, yeah. I mean, with these things, though, it's certainly in my particular case. I mean, I know more about mine than anybody else's, so therefore I can speak authoritatively about that. Now, in my particular case, if I see something bright yellow, I get a very tart kind of taste in my mouth.
Well, tart, you mean like Sauvignon Blanc?
Yeah.
No, seriously, I find that very tart, yeah?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. That's exactly the kind of sensation it gives me. But it might give somebody else a taste of bananas because they've got some semantic link with bananas. I don't know.
I see.
Does this mean, James, that you've constantly got the taste of something in your mouth? Because for most of us, I guess, I'm sitting here in a radio studio with Mike Parry, I'm not tasting anything. I've got a cup of tea in front of me, which I taste whenever I drink it, but I'm not tasting something constantly because we're speaking about things. But presumably for you, that's what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what's happening. I said exactly there. I got a strong taste of yoghurt. You said you mentioned the word guessing there, which was a strong tasting word. It came across as a wafer biscuit. So it constantly is a constant flow of food. They just sort of vary in strength. That's the only thing. They vary. And with the sporting thing as well, because you might find this interesting, because as a youngster, I used to play a game where I'd actually compare teams, team names, when they were playing one another. One team name would taste nicer than the other one. And in that way, I used to sort of get through a Saturday afternoon, 15 minutes maybe, going through things like that.
And who was the nicest tasting footballer then?
Well, it's difficult to do that, but I'll tell you what, I'll tell you why, because it doesn't work that way. I've got to remember the football and then I get the taste. I can't think of a taste and get the football. But I do remember Alan Gilzine, for example. We're talking a few years ago now. He had the most revolting taste of snot and some sort of waxy taste.
Oh, dear. We don't need to know that. Honestly, this is a family show.
Well, you asked the question.
I thought you were going to say haggis or something because he's a Scotsman.
Martin Peters is another one I remember. He had the lovely taste and texture of Bakewell tart.
Bakewell tart, well, that's very nice. I like the Bakewell tart. Yeah, that's very good.
But it must be incredibly uncomfortable. I would think. I mean, because, like I say, one of the things I suppose when you like what you're tasting is you don't want that taste to change, right? And if your taste is changing all the time, literally with every new sentence, it must be terribly confusing for you.
Yeah, it can. I mean, the biggest downfalls of all of this is that it can get confusing because, as you say, you get taste after taste after taste. Now, this strength thing I mentioned before is quite important because some of them are very, very strong. They get a strong taste, It will linger. Tell you what it's like. It's a bit like turning an electric light switch on and off. You know, a fluorescent light. You turn it on, bang, it comes straight on. You turn it off, it fades away slowly. If this is a strong sensation, it will fade so slowly, it'll take ages.
Yes.
And the quick ones just go, and then they're replaced by another one.
Can I ask you this, James? Supposing you are eating something you like. So, for instance, you're a fanatic for Angel Delight, Strawberry Angel Delight, OK? And you're eating that, and you're watching the television, but then some word that has a really marked effect on this particular synesthesia. Does the Angel Delight, Strawberry Angel Delight in your mouth start tasting of something else because you've just linked a word that you've heard on the telly to a different taste?
Yeah, spot on. Good question. I'll tell you when that happens more often, when I'm eating bland foods, such as potatoes. I distinctly remember, because it was a very strong effect, sitting at a I was eating some potatoes and somebody mentioned the word Karen. Now,
Karen?
to give you the perfect Karen, the name Karen, sorry. To give you an example, that immediately dolloped a large lump of yoghurt, sort of blackcurrant yoghurt, all over the potatoes. Because that's what I say, this is a real mouthfeel. It's not just simply an association, it's a mouthfeel. That's the weird thing.
I see.
And is there any way of controlling it, or at least kind of in some way tempering it? I mean, if it's a neurological thing, presumably you're stuck with it unless they can operate on you in some way inside your brain and change things.
Yeah, well, it is hardwired, so you're quite right. You can't turn it on, you can't turn it off, you can't turn it down. What you do is you learn to live with it. It's a bit like having a supposed tinnitus, because if you've got a loud screaming in your ears, you've got to live with it. So you tend to listen round it. And that's what happens with this. You know, I get all the tastes and flavours, but it seems natural to me. So.
OK. Now, James, what is the most pleasant taste you get or you can remember getting when a word has been mentioned? Something that you would love to happen again and again and again? You know, if you particularly like pancakes or something like that, does that come up with one particular word?
Yeah, I mean, there are words I love, and there are words I love hearing and saying. There are names I love, because bear in mind, a lot of these can be quite horrible. I mentioned Alan Gilzean. I mean, that's very real. It's, it was a horrible sensation. Yeah. And the real emotion comes with this as well, because I want to point that out. If I don't like the taste, I don't tend to like the object or person.
Right, so you don't like Alan Gilzean, but which is your
sound like it.
But which is your favourite word then, please, that emits your nicest taste?
Well, I like sweet tasting words, and the word that I always love using is a simple one, company, for example.
Company?
That is a company, it's just a very simple word. I just picked it out, and that gives me a lovely taste of very, very creamy yoghurt.
Well, I tell you what.
A lot of yoghurt going on here.
I tell you what, James, why don't you record the word company and have it on a loop so that you could listen to it for about 2 minutes?
Oh, you listen to Bad Company?
It loops for 2 or 3 minutes, during which time you would eat a normal yoghurt and go through the same experience.
Well, that's very, very possible. We're out of time, unfortunately, so time is of the essence. I don't know what time conjures up. Very strange indeed. James Wallerton there, who suffers from synesthesia. He says it's a neurological condition. Yeah. Very bizarre. This is talkSPORT. We've been waiting all morning, Mr. Parry, for the Crown Prosecution Service to make an announcement regarding Hillsborough and possible charges. Robin Schoenhofer's here with the latest on that. Robin.
Yes, Mike, we do have criminal charges being brought over the Hillsborough disaster. In the last couple of minutes, we found out that 6 individuals are going to face criminal charges. 4 of those individuals are former South Yorkshire police officers. The best person to tell you about these charges is the CPS's Sue Hemmings.
I have decided that there is sufficient evidence to charge 6 individuals with criminal offences. These are summarised as follows. There is sufficient evidence to charge former Chief Superintendent David Duckenfield with the manslaughter by gross negligence of 95 men, women and children. Mr Duckenfield was the match commander on the day of the disaster. In order to prosecute this matter, the CPS will need to apply to the High Court judge to remove the stay imposed at the end of his 1999 private prosecution. This process will commence shortly. We are unable to charge the manslaughter of Anthony Bland, the 96th casualty, who died almost 4 years later. This is due to time limitations imposed by the law as it applied at the time. Former Chief Constable Norman Betterson is charged with 4 offences of misconduct in public office. This relates to alleged lies he told about his involvement in the aftermath of Hillsborough and the culpability of fans. Graham Henry McCrell is charged with 2 offences of contravening a term or condition of a safety certificate contrary to the Safety of Sports Grounds Act 1975. He is additionally charged with 1 offence of failing to take reasonable care for the health and safety of other persons who may have been affected by his acts or omissions at work under the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. Mr McCrell was Sheffield Wednesday Football Club's company secretary and safety officer at the time. Peter Metcalfe is charged with doing acts with intent to pervert the course of public justice relating to material changes made to witness statements. Mr Metcalfe was the solicitor acting for the South Yorkshire Police during the Taylor inquiry and the first inquests. Former Chief Superintendent Donald Denton and former Detective Chief Inspector Alan Foster are charged with the same offence for their involvement in changes made to witness statements. The defendants, other than David Duckenfield, will all appear at Warrington Magistrates Court on the 9th of August.
So there you have it, Mike. Criminal charges brought against 6 individuals related to the Hillsborough disaster. It's been a long wait for the families, but they must feel that justice in some way is coming towards them now.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, and just do you want me to recap anything for you there?
Well, I mean, looking at the names, it's 6 people who were largely involved with the policing of the game. And even but the solicitor who's involved, Peter Metcalfe, is a solicitor who acted for the South Yorkshire Police as well. Difficult for us to go into too much detail on it, really, isn't it? Because obviously the case is now active.
The case is now active, so really severe reporting restrictions are in place. The interesting part for some will be the former Chief Superintendent David Duckenfield, who was the match commander. He's been charged with manslaughter of 95 of the 96 victims. Now, we're told that they couldn't charge him in relation to Anthony Bland's death. He was the 96th victim because he died a number of years later, and there are restrictions on charges related to that. And he also won't be appearing in court next in August because they're going to have to go through a legal procedure relating to a private prosecution that was had a few years ago.
Right.
And Robin, when this announcement was made public this morning, were the families there?
The families were told first, as you would expect. So at 11 o'clock this morning in Warrington, the Crown Prosecution Service went in and met with the families of the victims and explained exactly the findings that they'd come to and what was going to happen next. And then they released the details to us, which is what we've just played you now.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Robin.
On digital radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. talkSPORT.
That's obviously going to be massive news over the next day or so. But as we said, we can't really get into the details of it because of the nature of the legalities involved as well. Let's talk about something else, though, because we've got lots of
hang on. We haven't gone over the Tiddlywinks yet.
Well, you still want to talk about Tiddlywinks?
Well, if you conceded that it can't possibly be an Olympic event, you were winding me up before.
Well, no, because you've heard my point of view about the Olympics. My point of view about the Olympics is that the Olympics, by and large, is a sort of discredited events, as far as I'm concerned. You know, the people who are now in the Olympics in almost every sport are professional sportsmen and women. They are not in any way, shape or form the original sort of Olympic types, right? So putting Tiddlywinks in would probably liven it up a bit. Would probably, because the people who actually play Tiddlywinks would not be professionals, so they'd actually be more likely to fulfil the original Olympic ideal than somebody in a rowing team or somebody in a gymnastics team or some Russian athlete who's been taking drugs. You know, so don't give me this nonsense about how the Olympics has got some kind of purity about it, because it doesn't.
Anyway, talking about purity, synesthesia, which we've just been talking about.
That was a very odd conversation.
And a lot of our callers are saying that guy was a deranged quack. Well, I don't accept that, because this is a real condition. But what I do get slightly distressed about is people trying to take the mickey out of a very, very serious situation.
Well, I mean, he doesn't seem to be unhappy about the fact that he's got it. He didn't say that he was in any way... Well, I would hate it as well.
I hate it. I mean, Alan Gilzean, you know, and what he said about him. I don't like Alan Gilzean because the taste I get in my mouth when I hear the word Alan Gilzean is not a very pleasant one.
That's a bit unfortunate for him. How about this from Leo, the Spurs fan? He says, I too have synesthesia. Every time I hear Mike Parry, I get the taste of ginger nuts.
Oh, ha, ha, ha. Leo, the Spurs fan. Every time I hear the word Mike Graham, my mouth feels like it's full of coal dust.
Coal dust?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
How do you know what coal dust tastes like?
Well, because, you know, you can imagine, can't you?
No.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
Yes, you can, because my mum used to light a coal fire every morning. She used to go down and put the old, paper in and the wood and all that, light a fire. And quite often it would blow back down the chimney into my face.
Why?
And I would taste coal dust.
Didn't she think about being the flu?
You still open the flue, and that's when the blowback came.
Well, no, when you open the flue, the smoke goes up at the chimney.
Well, it's supposed to close the flue.
You don't know anything about fires, do you?
Yeah,
something else you don't know anything about.
Yeah, I do, because you used to have to pull this sort of anchor type thing down behind the fire to heat the water.
What?
The water was heated in our house by the coal fire. No. It was all houses were built like that after the war.
Really?
Yes.
After the war?
Yes, that's right.
God.
Well, when was your house
65?
built? When was the house built that you lived in Hampstead?
In Hampstead, I think it was a Victorian sort of
Well, exactly. That's
build.
what I'm saying. So what on earth are you getting exasperated about buildings that were built after the war for?
Well, because we didn't have some kind of obscure water heater behind the
how
fire.
did you heat your water?
How?
Yeah.
You had a boiler like everybody else.
Yeah, well, that boiler must have been put in much later. The Victorians didn't have boilers.
Well, it probably was, but I mean, I didn't live in some kind of squalor, in some kind of, ridiculous... Did you have an outside toilet as well?
Yes, as well as an inside one. We were very posh.
You had an outside toilet?
Yeah, we had an upstairs bathroom, we had an outside loo and a wash house.
So you had to use that as well, did you?
Well, family used it. That's what they loos are for, to make life easier.
So you grew up in with an outside dunny, in other words?
Well, I tell you what, a lot of people who lived near me didn't have such good houses, only had an outside loo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not pleasant. It's -5 in the winter and your hollyhocks are... getting frozen.
Charming.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Do you remember you were waxing very lyrical about Paolo Maldini the other day?
Indeed.
And about how brilliant he was because he was going to be one of your heroes, I think, in Heroes and Villains.
He was.
Because he was playing
Didn't last
tennis.
long, did he?
In a tournament, right?
Know,
and he's one of the first people who's thought to have been an incredibly successful footballer.
Yep.
But at the age of 49, was going to be playing at the very highest level of tennis in a doubles match.
Yeah.
Well, did you see what happened?
Yeah. I did see what happened.
Well, go on, tell us.
Well, it was all over so quickly. 42 minutes, right?
Yeah.
He was playing with Stefano Landoni. It was the ATP Challenge Tour. It was in Milan, as you quite rightly say. He's 49, but incredibly fit.
Yeah, but he's not very good at tennis.
Well, the ATP Challenger Tour, a decent crowd turned out to see Maldini and Londonio. Aren't they great Italian names, those? Maldini, Londonio. And I'm afraid they got beaten 6-1, 6-1 by a very average sort of pairing of Tomasz Bednarek and David Pell. Yeah.
So this idea that he's some kind of, sporting superstar.
That's right.
Who's going to get to the very top of two very difficult professions is all absolute rubbish.
Absolute rubbish
so
indeed.
The Porky jinx has kicked in well and truly.
Not at all.
So that's the end of his tennis career.
My observations on it was spot on. I said it would be very difficult to do it.
No, you said he was a hero for becoming such a successful tennis player.
Well,
I
was glad because I've just seen this. I was glad that he took it on. Now, here, another supporter of mine sent a message in. I do appreciate your messages, thank you, because, old MG can be brutal sometimes in his attacks on me because he thinks he's right.
Not true.
And I do support I do appreciate your support. Porky, you get mixed up with coal dust with cinnamon. You didn't take the coal dust challenge, you idiot. That's Liam Pershall.
Yes,
but the one I was
true.
looking for, actually says something about pulling the anchor down behind the fire. Where's it gone? I've lost it. It actually says that you're absolutely right, Porky. I can't find it.
What are you talking about now?
Well, he says, in our house when I grew up, there was an anchor behind the fire. You used to pull it down and it used to heat the water. You're spot on again. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, nobody's saying I wasn't challenging you as far as the veracity of what you were saying.
Yes.
I just found it very odd that you were living in some kind of medieval dwelling.
Yeah, that came from. Well, don't put a name on it actually, just a number. But you pulled the anchored thing to draw the fire, to blaze away and heat the water. That comes from Bart. Thank you very much indeed, Bart.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Proven right again, as usual.
Okay. Well, coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit about the Qatari situation.
We certainly are.
Because we are going to speak to Damien Collins, who's chairman of the Commons Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee.
We are going to get serious.
Yeah, we are going to get serious. This is talkSPORT. We are the two mics, and we are, of course, with Wix. And the thing is, you don't want to... What is it you don't want to do? You don't want to have a wasted trip,
Well,
do you?
listen, I'll tell you what it's all about, mate. We are the two mics, of course. Yeah. We are with Wix. And don't waste precious time. If you try our online stock checker, you never have to make a wasted trip.
Which is what you don't absolutely want to do.
That's right.
I'll tell you what, you don't want to make a wasted trip to Qatar, do you? Because
Certainly
in Qatar in 2022, they're supposed to be having a World Cup. However, a report which came out yesterday, which was leaked to the Bild newspaper in Germany,
that's right,
which basically proves that there was a lot of jiggery-pokery around the awarding of the World Cup by FIFA.
Yeah.
And also, because of what we talked about yesterday as far as the whole Qatari situation goes, whether the country will in fact be in any fit state to host a World Cup by then because of this boycott that's going going on.
Indeed.
We thought we should talk to Damien Collins, MP, who is, of course, with the Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee. He's the chairman. He thinks now that Qatar perhaps ought to have it taken away from it. Let's find out why. Damien, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we had a big debate about this situation yesterday, because not just because of the report from Mr. Garcia, which has now been seen in its kind of entirety, but also because of the current situation with Qatar, where, you know, Saudi Arabia and some of the other Gulf states are calling for its kind of isolation and a shutting down of all sorts of things, including Al Jazeera. I mean, it just seems like a good time to say enough is enough, doesn't it?
Well, there are two things there, really. The first is that if it can be demonstrated that corrupt payments were made by the Qatar bid in order to secure votes, then there's no question at all that Qatar should lose the right to host the World Cup. It should be taken off them. Now, what we've seen with the Garcia report is further evidence of a culture of corruption within FIFA, of lots of senior officials receiving or authorising unusual payments, and we don't yet know the full reason why all those payments were being made. But what it does reveal, though, is what a completely rotten organisation FIFA was. And we can see now why it was people like Sepp Blatter were so keen to suppress the Garcia report to make sure it never got into the public domain, because it would have blown the lid on FIFA as an organisation, and also, in my view, on just how dodgy the whole process was of deciding where World Cups should be played. And we can look now not just at the 2018 and 2022 bids that were run in 2010, but it would seem that most of the decisions over the last 20 years over where the World Cup should be played have been compromised by one, payment or another which looks corrupt.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see, Damien, how this can go any further now. I mean, you have stated the case quite clearly. It's absolutely fundamental to the common decency of what happens in football that this competition has to be taken away from Qatar. How can anybody disagree with your point of view?
Well, I think the position you'll have now is what the Qataris will say, is legally, we don't believe that we didn't make any corrupt payments. Unless you can prove otherwise, you can't take it off us. And I think that's the position Qatar will take. But, of course, there has been now, running for 2 years, a separate investigation by the Swiss Attorney General, a criminal investigation, looking into the bidding process around the World Cup. It'll be very interesting to know now what more they can do. And also, I think our own Syria's Forward Office and other government agencies should be looking at the Garcia report to say, OK, well, should we be opening further investigations of our own based on the content of that report if we feel we can add to trying to get to the truth. But I mean, what it just shows is what a horrifically corrupt organisation FIFA had become.
Yes.
And I'm still not convinced it has been sufficiently cleaned out.
Right. Yeah. Damien, is your view in any way compromised by the fact that within the report the English Football Association are guilty of anomalies?
No, not at all. I mean, I think there are quite serious issues for the FA there. I think we have to look at those very carefully. I mean, the FA will probably say they were competing in what had become a corrupted process, having to bid for the World Cup. Yeah. But they clearly did things which I don't think really, in the cold light of day, stand up too well. Of course, the English FA gets more criticism than others do in this report because England fully cooperated with the investigation.
Yes.
You've got to remember, the Spain-Portugal bid didn't cooperate, and the Russians said that they'd lost all their paperwork and all the computers had been destroyed, so they couldn't. Also, Garcia was. When you look at bids like Qatar, Garcia was very limited. He could only really interview people that had worked directly on the bid. Yeah. He had no jurisdiction to interview consultants and others that had worked on their behalf. So I think this is one of the big grey areas of the whole bidding process.
Yeah. I mean, one of the arguments we were making yesterday was that, time is obviously of the essence with these things, because what you don't want to do is let this drag on and on and on. And as I said earlier, there are other considerations with Qatar at the moment. If we were to be able to say to FIFA, surely this is now the time to look elsewhere and not put the 2022 World Cup on in Qatar. That needs to be done sooner rather than later, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there is still time. Obviously, it is further away as a tournament, and it was very unusual for FIFA to. Well, it'd never been done before for FIFA to award 2 tournaments in one go, and many people raised concerns about that at the time. So there is still time there. But I think clearly the publication of the Garcia report now throws up more leads, more suspicious payments, more things people want to look at. And I think really we should have some sort of statement from the Swiss Attorney General who's been leading on this to say where has he got to with his inquiry. What we really want now is that inquiry to be completed. If he's got the evidence, for charges to be brought forward, so we know where we stand. But what it will require, I don't think FIFA will take the tournament off of Qatar unless there is, a proper sort of legal sort of evidence, solid legal evidence that links the Qatar bid to these corrupt payments. But we need to know where we stand.
OK, why do you appear to be a lone voice in this, Damien? Are you building a franchise of support behind you? Because there is an overwhelming evidential case for this to be further investigated.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I'm by no means a lone voice. I mean, I along with as part of the new FIFA Now campaign group, have been campaigning on this issue for several years now, and surveys of fans that we've conducted all around the world demonstrate their anger, their desire for massive reform in the way world football is run. Yeah. Many of us share the concern that actually what we've seen since Gianni Infantino became president is an attempt to try and calm things down and hold the organisation together, not to put through the sort of root and branch reform that it needs. Because I think we've got a long way to go before we clean up world football. But there are people all around the world that are concerned about that, and I heard being discussed on the radio earlier this week that FIFA can't get away all the sponsorship for the World Cup in Russia. And that's a consequence again, I think, of people seeing FIFA as a tainted brand.
Yeah, that's the problem for them, and we're told as well by people who know these things that there's a sort of fight between old FIFA and new FIFA, and that's why kind of nothing's happening. But where else is nothing happening? Because you look over to the United States and the US Attorney's investigation, the FBI, and all of that. I mean, what's happened to that? That seems to have gone very quiet.
It does, although, I mean, you hear rumours from time to time saying that they expect further charges to be brought by the FBI, and their investigation is still very, very much live. It may well have taken them to other parts of the world as well. Their initial investigation only really looked at the North America and Caribbean football associations, but there's grounds for concern in other confederations that there'll be similar problems too. So I would expect there will be more information coming from the FBI. But once again, what we've seen this week, though, is every time there's a breakthrough in what we know, every time new evidence comes out, it's the result of investigative journalism, the leak of a report, or a criminal investigation. Sure. It is never football doing it itself. And what we see time and time again is information coming into the public domain that was known about by people within FIFA at the time, and they didn't act on it.
Yeah. Damien, listen, thank you very much indeed. Good luck with your campaign. Damien Collins, MP, Chairman of the Commons Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee. Yes. I mean, the problem seems to be with this whole story that there isn't really anyone else outside of FIFA putting enough pressure on FIFA to do anything. No, FIFA's just agree, kind of stumbling along, pretending that everything is really pretty much the same as it always was. Qatar, as Damien said, have already issued a statement today saying, well, this report by Mr. Garcia proves that we were not in any way improper in obtaining the successful bid. Nothing is actually happening.
And when Damien's fighting a good case here, when he says Qatar should lose the World Cup, the only people who can take the World Cup off them is FIFA, who say we're not going to.
No, exactly. And a couple of people have tweeted in quite rightly saying that FIFA are more interested in England's, misbehaviour than they are in Qatar's. Yeah, exactly. And what England may have been up to, because they've got this thing where they hang up about England.
Once again,
the old world of football.
Once again, the decency of the way we do it in Britain, because we do most things decently. Yeah. We have, I like to think we have the least corrupt police force in the world, for instance, because we're open and we open the books and we say, well, this is what our involvement was. We've now got a stain in our character because in being so open, we found out that so you did get sucked into a couple of situations which you had to get involved in. Right. It was a corrupt bidding process, so we had to get onto the edge of agreements.
And there'd be lots of people advising you to do certain things, which might be against your better judgment.
Look, you scratch their back and they'll scratch yours. Yeah. It wasn't serious. It wasn't money. It was doing deals. But because other countries will not open their file of negotiations and talks and agreements...
Well, the Russians have lost all theirs.
Well, the Russians have lost all their computers, all been destroyed and all that. We're now being said, oh, well, you didn't behave exactly properly. No. Well, you don't know which other countries behaved improperly because they haven't opened their file and told the Garcia investigation what they were doing.
No, quite right.
It's an outrage.
It is ridiculous.
An outrage.
But, we will be talking more about this, I'm sure, as time goes on. I still think the time is now to say to Qatar, sorry, this is just not going to happen.
But who's going to say that?
Well, I don't know. Apart from me, I don't know.
Exactly.
This is talkSPORT. Good morning, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry. You're listening to Two Mikes on talkSPORT. I should say good afternoon, actually, because it's now after midday, isn't it?
It certainly is,
easy to forget that. But here we are, lots going on. We're going to be talking about Jermaine Defoe and the £8 million that he says he wants for moving from Sunderland to either Bournemouth or West Ham or wherever else he ends up. Also, of course, it's Porky Vision time, the best TV review this side of the Tiddly Stadium that we didn't mention too much about. That's where the England under-21 team got beaten last night on penalties by the Germans. You're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on talkSPORT. So this transfer window business is all a bit weird, isn't it? Because Everton seems to be the only team that are actually buying any players. And they bought another one yesterday, I think, some striker from Belgium, right?
He did, a young lad, 20 years of age, and he's gone out to Anderlecht on loan for a year to try and help him improve. But I think he scored something like 22 goals in 37 games last season. Joint top scorer in the Belgian Super League.
Yes.
So we're looking forward really to that. And reports this morning that the very talented defender at Burnley, Michael Keane.
Michael Keane, yes.
Maybe on his way to Goodison.
I thought Man United were after him.
Well, apparently, I didn't realise that Jose had gone and spotted some Portuguese defender that he thinks is even better than Michael Keane, and he's continental, which I think opened the way for... I know Everton have had an eye on Michael Keane for over a year, and I think at one stage they did thought they were going to get eased out of it by, the lure of Manchester United for a young man who I think used to be on United's books years ago. It's one of those situations where you get released and you go back. But I'd be delighted if Everton got him. But the transfer that has captured our imagination this morning, because the astonishing figures and the sheer scale of what's going on, is Jermaine Defoe.
Yes.
Now, the figures that we are, been reported this morning is that Jermaine Defoe looked as though he was on his way to Bournemouth. West Ham are apparently a suitor to him as well.
Yeah.
But what seems to be slowing up the deal for this 34-year-old international forward, who is a terribly decent chap. I mean, his work in charity off the field, helping the young lad who's terribly ill and who Jermaine has adopted, He's almost as famous for that this season as for playing football. But Sunderland have gone down. He's going to move on. He's got he can walk out on a no fee contract. But the circumstances are he wants apparently £8 million signing on fee.
Yeah.
From Bournemouth.
Which is a massive amount of money, isn't it, in one hit?
That's £8 million. Yeah. And he wants £80,000 a week for 3 years, which would make the total package £20 million.
And he's already 34, right?
He's already 34.
So he's expecting to play for whoever he goes to play for until he's 37.
Absolutely.
And I mean, he is very fit. Yeah. We know that he doesn't drink, for example. He looks after himself very well. So there's no reason why he couldn't probably, like Ryan Giggs, play right up to the age of 40 in reasonably good condition.
I agree.
But $8 million as a sort of fronted-up payment, as it were, just seems crazy, doesn't it?
Well, can you accuse these guys of being greedy, or can you say, no, he's wringing the last drop of worth out of his career because he knows that this will be his last move, obviously. Yeah. And therefore, he and his agents, his advisors, his lawyers said, no, we reckon that's what you're worth to Bournemouth. And if Bournemouth stay in the Premier League over the next 3 years, because Jermaine Defoe is knocking away 15 to 20 goals a season for them, they might think it's worth it.
Well, they might do. And, I mean, in the world of craziness that football now is, I mean, I suppose you might say $8 million is not a great deal in terms of, just a one-off payment when you're paying. I mean, Everton paid, $30-odd million for that goalkeeper.
Indeed.
Jordan Pickford.
Yes.
So, I mean, maybe they will pay it. But it explains as well, does it not, why, when I thought this deal was already done, I thought he was done. He was going to Bournemouth, he'd had a medical and everything was sorted out. But clearly it's not.
But, I mean, the Bournemouth fans themselves, Bournemouth's not an impoverished part of the country.
No.
But surely when they go to their first game next season, if Jermaine Defoe comes out in a Bournemouth shirt and they look at him and they think, you've got £8 million in the bank of money from this club.
Of our club's money.
Of our club's money. Just for putting on that Bournemouth shirt and coming out and standing there and kicking off in the first game of the season.
Right.
It would give me a very uneasy feeling.
And Bournemouth actually last season did rather well, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
I mean, do they actually need a player who's going to be costing them that much money to improve things? Because I'm not sure they can improve.
He's such a good player. He's been recalled to the England setup. So, I mean, he's got to be, we all know he's a very good player.
But what if he prices himself out of a decent team, right? Because of the fact that Bournemouth decide they don't want to pay $8 million, West Ham decide they don't want to pay $8 million.
Yeah.
If he wants to go to Russia in the World Cup and be part of England's squad, he needs to be playing in the Premier League, doesn't he?
I totally agree. And if now, supposing Bournemouth turn around and say, actually, it's too expensive. Although we think you're a great player, we don't think you're worth £20 million worth of player. Right. So we're not now. If that's the case, then he's got to pay back his what he's asking for, isn't he? Pay back his demands
think so.
and say,
all right, I'll settle for 4.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And then you've got a terribly difficult situation in which it looks like he was trying to hold the club to blackmail or something. No, I don't mean you're trying to ransom, by saying I'm only coming for this price. But then they say, well, we'll give you half. So, all right, I'll come anyway. And that looks even worse for him. It really does. It looks like he's being opportunistic.
Well, it doesn't take much, does it? It's only sometimes one story like this which can sort of turn people against any particular player.
That's right.
And because Jermaine Defoe's always been seen as a guy whose career was kind of falsely stopped because he ended up getting fired from the England job. He didn't really, wasn't Roy Hodgson's favourite player.
Sure.
He ended up having to go across to Toronto to play in the MLS.
That's right.
And everybody assumed that was the last thing ever seen of him. But, in fact, he was always seen as a bit of a victim. But because of this, he is going to be seen as greedy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's 35.
I think his image is going to be changed.
Yeah, he's 35 in October, so he could be 37, 38, as you quite rightly say. The difference between this and Pickford, right, is Pickford's a young lad, 20 years of age, so he lines up for Everton on day one, and we look at him and we think, wow, we're very proud of our £30 million goalkeeper.
Yes.
But the 30 million didn't go into Pickford's pocket. But this 8 million is going straight into Jermaine Defoe's bank account.
Well, you don't know that. I mean, it might be going to his agent, mightn't it?
Of course,
half of it might be going to his agent.
Yeah, of course it is. But what I'm saying is that the person benefiting from the vast sum of money is in this case Jermaine Defoe.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Pickford's probably getting £100,000 a week or something at Everton, I would imagine, or $80,000 a week or something like that. So, but we all know players.
Sunderland.
When he goes to Everton. That's what he'll be getting. And so what I'm saying is that we all know they get paid very high wages, but a one-off lump sum, $8 million.
I've never heard of a signing-on fee for somebody of Jermaine Defoe's age.
No.
I mean, I've heard of a sort of you've got to buy them out their contracts, particularly in Spain or somewhere else on the continent, as you put it. But I've never heard of somebody being paid a signing-on fee.
Yeah.
That sort of period of his career. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, you do get sign-on fees, but generally speaking, they've been like in the the low millions,
It'd be great,
$2 million, something like that.
Imagine if you moved to some new radio station, they give you £8 million.
Yeah, here's £8 million to sign on, and then £80,000 a week. Yeah, that's very good.
You'd probably walk away for that, wouldn't you?
No. I wonder whether the Bournemouth fans, because let's face it, for years Bournemouth struggled financially, but now of course they're in the on the gravy train with the Premier League.
Right.
But I do wonder if there's a Bournemouth fan out there somewhere, or lots of Bournemouth fans thinking, I'd rather he didn't come for that sort of money. That is hugely expensive.
I mean, let's
to
find
spend
out.
on one player.
Let's find out. 08717 22 33 444. It's talk to Darren, who's in Cobham. Hello, Darren.
Yeah. Hello there.
Yeah, hi. What would you like to say, Darren?
Right, okay. So I was thinking about this the other day when he was mooted that he was going to come to Bournemouth, and I had a look at what Bournemouth earned from the position that they finished in the Premiership. I think it's about 118 million this year.
Yes.
So they've got 118 million. Now I looked at what Sunderland to finish bottom earned, and they earned 98 million. So I thought, okay, so next year Bournemouth finished bottom, guaranteed another 98 million. So that's 216 million plus the 3 years of parachute payments that they're going to get guaranteed come to 102 million.
Yeah.
We're talking 310 million pounds. So actually paying Jermaine Defoe 20 million over 3 years, including the 8 million signing-on fee, is a gamble worth taking, in my opinion.
Okay, you think that, but I mean, what about the individual benefiting to such a degree? £8 million is life-changing money. Even lottery winners don't win £8 million. You see what I mean?
Okay, fair enough, but I don't see what that's got to do with anything.
Well, what it's got to do with it is... Yeah, but I just think that the individual fan, that we always know over the last 20 years the gap between the fans and the players has been growing. The days when the players went to the game on the bus, obviously. But now, the vast chasm now between the fans and the players is perfectly illustrated by an £8 million golden, hello. And I think that some fans will find that unacceptable.
I totally accept that. Some fans will find it unacceptable, but I think there's a lot who probably think, well, actually, I'd rather just stay in the Premiership. I'm not really bothered. They're so disconnected from the players these days that it's just the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
And I mean, there can't be many businesses. Darren, thanks very much for your call. There can't be very many businesses or sports even where so much money is talked about with such little kind of concern.
Oh, yeah,
when
totally
you go,
agree.
£8 million, so what? It's not very much money. Yeah. And I mean, we're all guilty of it as well.
Of course we are.
Because the sheer volume of money swishing around in the Premier League is so huge that you kind of expect it, don't you?
The strangest thing is that's probably only 3 months' earning for Ronaldo.
Yes. Well, it's probably less than that, I would think.
Yeah. Well, if he's on about $1 million a week, it's 2 months' earning.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. Very strange stuff. We'll take more calls on it, though. 08717 22 3344. Porky Vision coming up as well. This is talkSPORT.
Yes.
Got a couple of tweets here to read out to you. Robbie says this at the two mics. They're getting Defoe for free. Just look at Man United paying Ibrahimovic a lot more. It is a great deal. Daz in Sterling says, why don't Bournemouth just buy a better striker with the extra $8 million?
Yeah, that's interesting.
And Zoggy says, if Bournemouth want Defoe, then cough up, because that's clearly the going rate. Porky's talking rubbish.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking rubbish at all. I'm talking about, the concentration of so much money on the head of one footballer. It's astonishing, even to me. We've grown up with football and the excessive amounts of money, but that's astonishing. It really is.
It really is astonishing. We'll talk some more about that coming up. But right now, we're going to talk to a very interesting man by the name of Alexander Todorov. Right, he's written a book called Face Value: The Irresistible Influence of First Impressions.
Yeah.
And it's all about how when you see somebody's face, you immediately make a judgment about them, which very rarely actually changes the more you get to know them. Yeah. Alexander, a very good afternoon to you.
Yeah, and thank you for having me.
Not at all.
Great to have you on the show.
Not at all. First impressions is something we hear people talk about a lot. They fall in love at first sight, or, their first impressions of people that they meet on a day-to-day basis.
They dislike people.
Yeah, you take an instant dislike to people. I mean, is this all stuff which is uppable, I suppose, scientifically?
Yeah, but in fact, the scientific research suggests that we do engage in these impressions extremely, extremely rapidly. They're pretty effortless. I mean, you can show a face for less than 1/10 of a second, and this provides sufficient information for people to form an impression.
What gives people an impression about somebody in terms of the face shape, Alexander, or is it the body language, or is it an expression on the face? What's the key factor that determines whether you like or dislike somebody immediately?
Well, this is actually interesting. A lot of my work and a lot in the book is about faces, but body language is extremely important.
Right.
It's actually we've done some studies in the area of sports because they have extreme expressions. So imagine a striker after scoring a goal, their expression, or, tennis players after winning or losing a point.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you just show the faces to participants in experimental studies, they have no idea what the emotion is. They don't know whether it's positive or negative. They just think that everything looks negative. But in fact, if you just show the bodies, they're pretty much aware. They're pretty good at guessing whether it was a good point or a bad point and whether they scored or not. And it's very interesting. But what's happening is that our brains very, very quickly disambiguate the information. So everything goes in the expressions, the body language. Of course, the situation comes with a set of expectations. And in this particular case, there's really no information in the face, but we think that the information comes from the face just because everything else helps us incredibly quickly disambiguate what we are seeing in the face.
And is it often the case that people change their minds after the first impression, or do they tend to stick with that first impression no matter what?
Well, it very much depends what kind of information they're provided after. So, in fact, if you have diagnostic information about the person, if you have good interactions, you will change your mind accordingly. I mean, again, in the area of sport, there's a great case study on the Oakland A's, the Major League Baseball team that is led by Billy Beane. And what is interesting about this team is that they don't have as much money as the other Major League Baseball teams like the Red Sox or the Yankees, but they're consistently good. And the way he does it is by exploiting the prejudice of appearance. So he would recruit players who kind of don't fit the stereotype of they don't look the part. Yet, because baseball, you have so much statistical information, he knows that they're excellent players. And then after a couple of years playing for him, suddenly they're overvalued because now people are no longer judging them based on their appearance, but based on their performance.
OK, fine. Now, in your country, America, Alexander, isn't it true to say that the basic rule of law on this subject is that if you're good-looking, people like you, and if you're ugly, people don't. And that's why all your newsreaders in America are either beauty queens or look like Brad Pitt, and those with unfortunate faces never get into broadcasting.
Well, I think that you're right, but this is actually true not just for America. I mean, I think that works across many countries. It's probably much more visible and salient in America. You're absolutely right about the broadcasters.
Yes.
And there's decades of research in psychology on attractiveness biases. In almost all domains, attractive people get better outcomes.
They do.
But in fact, it's not just about attractiveness, because you can look athletic and not look attractive. You can look trustworthy and not look attractive. So it very much depends. First impressions, in fact, could be much more specific and depend on the situation.
I wonder whether politicians and people in that kind of business would look at your book, Alexander, and work out how to look more trustworthy and actually prepare themselves to look more trustworthy as a result of reading what influence you say they could have.
Well, it is possible. I'm sure, actually, that the political consultants who work, they're selecting very carefully what kind of images to present. And, in fact, we've done many, many studies starting more than 10 years ago on electoral success. And that, again, that has been replicated across many different countries. And essentially the finding is that politicians who look more competent, not trustworthy, more competent, they're actually more likely to get elected.
Right. Now, I don't know whether you've had an opportunity to study our faces, Alexander, in your expert view. But if you have had a chance to look at us, what can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you that, first of all, different images of the same person can generate completely different impressions. So this is very important. And it's another important part of the puzzle why we form these first impressions, yet they're not accurate when it comes to reading the character. But from image on your website, I can tell you that you guys are funny. And you're trying to have a funny and interesting show, because this is what the image conveys.
Hang on, I'm a serious broadcaster.
He's a very serious broadcaster, yes. We've won awards, you know.
Yeah, we have won awards. Yeah, we're serious people. But I tell you something.
I'm sure. But you can be serious and funny. Isn't that the best?
That is the best. I'm multi-talented. You're absolutely right. That is true. Thank you very much indeed for confirming that. But I'm assuming
you could probably tell my colleague with the beard, who is Mike Parry, is much less trustworthy looking than me.
How dare you say that? How dare you say that?
It's all in the eye of the beholder, you know that.
It certainly is. Alexander, thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Fantastic. I'm telling you what, I'll talk about something being in the eye of the beholder. Matt has sent in another copy of that picture of you taking the penalty at Old Trafford and said, I'm very worried about my dad's eyesight. He saw this and thought it was Paul Scholes.
Paul Scholes? Yeah, well, I did have the same sort of body language as Paul Scholes.
Incredible.
I mean, he was a midfield general, and I was a midfield general, so I must
now
have
you compare yourself to Paul Scholes.
I must have the same sort of gait.
Yeah, please don't do that. That looks really horrendous. I have to describe what you were just doing there in a moment. Coming up next, though, is Porky Vision. Now, Perry has tweeted in at the 2 mics and says, I thought Porky Vision was on Thursdays. Well, you got that wrong, Perry, because it's right now.
It's a movable feast.
Crocodile Shoes is a theme song to Crocodile Shoes, not Spender.
Yeah, but he played Spender in Crocodile Shoes, didn't he? Well, I think so.
I mean, you're the expert.
No,
you're
hang
the
on.
guy.
Spender was a different series, yeah.
Now, that was obviously a previously recorded version of Porky Vision where you got something wrong, which is very rare.
I didn't. I was clarifying.
Very rare that you get anything wrong.
A clarification.
Well, normally what happens is you give your verdict on various shows.
Yes.
And various people then tweet in and say, actually, he's got that completely wrong.
Yes.
But so I don't know what you're going to be doing this week on Porky Vision.
Well, listen, I'm concentrating on Poldark, because that's the big one at the moment.
Is it? Yeah.
Now, Poldark's going from bad to worse.
Is it?
You know, I said to you last week, he didn't take the job of magistrate.
Yes.
Because I cannot judge my people.
Oh, yes.
But old Walgoran, or whatever his name is.
Walgoran?
No, Walagaron.
Walagaron.
Yeah, no, he's the local villain, but he's a rich villain and all that. He took the job, and guess what he does?
I don't know.
I mean, this guy's such a scumbag, right?
Yeah.
That what happens is...
You say that in a family show.
Yeah, you can, yeah. He's invited by the old, the Cornwall County chief, to a big ball at the big house, and this takes him another step up on the social network, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And he gets a note from, the big boss to say, my nephew's up in court in front of you tomorrow because he's been messing around with one of the serving wenches, at the big house.
Okay.
Can you help?
The big house, isn't that what they normally refer to as the prison? The big house.
Yeah, the big house, yeah. Well, I meant, the big chief's house, you know what I mean?
Right.
So this guy turns up in court, this despicable man who's been, pestering and interfering, in matters of a sexual nature with the serving wench.
Yes.
And, Wallagger on, with his wig on, he says, a terrible crime has been committed in this courtroom. I will not stand for the way things are. And then orders the constable, take that woman away for lying in court. She will be charged with trying to pervert the course of justice.
Oh, yes.
This young man could never have...
Perjury.
All that kind of stuff,
Right.
So, meanwhile, Poldark's over... Now, this is where the plot goes completely wrong, right?
Right.
Poldark sets off in a boat with his mate who's only got one arm, right? Well, actually...
You've got a rowing boat.
No, yeah, that's right, yeah. They go round in circles. No. So he goes off with his mate, but the thing is, his mate actually has got two arms, but only one hand. You see what I mean?
What? So he hasn't got one arm, then. He's got two arms. And has he got a hook or something?
No, well, this is the ridiculous bit about it. His mate's got a right arm, right, but his left arm is as you quite rightly say, a hook. But the thing is, I don't think the clothing department, and is it the BBC, isn't it, Poldark?
It is.
Is it?
Yeah, Sunday night.
It? Yeah, it is. Yeah, Poldark. I don't think they've done a very good job because they just seem to have stuck a plastic hook on the end of his left arm.
Right.
So his left arm's about twice the length of his right arm, but it's only got a hook, right?
Right.
So anyway, they go off to France.
He's not a pirate, is he?
Well, I think he's been everything, this guy. He's a bit of a villain.
Yeah.
And also, his accent changes. 1 minute he's, Cornwall man with a hook on the end of my arm.
It's meant to be in Cornwall, isn't it?
Yeah, but by the time we get to France, he's, I'm telling you.
He's got the Northern Ireland.
It's
such as the Brendan Rodgers.
That's right, yeah. And then, have you ever been to Glasgow? A bit later on and all this kind of stuff.
How bizarre.
But anyway.
So they end up in France, do they?
They end up in France. Now, the plot is so complicated.
Well, hang on, how big is this boat they've been on?
Oh, well, they get their own boat out to a bigger boat with sails,
they
sail over to France, right? So anyway, when they get into France, there's no historical perspective here at all. What happens is, as they land, all these French soldiers are walking around with rifles and literally beating up anybody in the street. Some poor bloke coming the other way holding the loaf he's got, just to keep his family.
French loaf.
The French loaf, that's right, yeah. To keep his family in food for the next week.
Right.
And the soldiers, for a bit of a fun, because this is the time of the revolution in France.
I see, right.
And soldiers, for a bit of fun, they say, you got a loaf, have you? They raise the butt of their rifle, they smash the bloke in the head.
That's not very nice.
And he falls to the ground, and then jump up and down on his loaf.
Are they supposedly representing the king or something?
Well, they're representing the Republic, the new Republic, because the revolution's taken place.
Okay.
And all the old good guys, they've been locked up in the old Bastille.
Right. Well, shouldn't they be being nice to the peasants then, so they're part of the revolution?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't quite work it out why they're beating all these people up. No. And the strangest thing is, I mean, Poldark and his mate, his one-armed mate, or his one-hook mate.
Well, his hook mate, yeah.
Just go into a local boozer in Paris and start drinking away. And they're speaking in English, and nobody seems to want to beat them up. Everybody else is getting, soldiers come in drunk and all that, and criminal, magnifique, and they grab some bloke and they smash his face against the wall.
Right.
I mean, it's just random violence.
So this is all now moved to France. So the whole show is now moved to France.
Well, no, Poldark has moved to France, while Del Maurice, his wife, Demelza, back in Cornwall, is saying, I don't know if my husband will ever come back.
Oh, right.
No, sorry. No, it was, I don't know. No, hang on. I don't know if my husband will ever come back.
It's in Bristol.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
It's like Ian Holloway.
Yeah, that's right.
Who are you?
I don't know if my husband will ever come back. I might be a widow now, and I got another baby coming,
And what is he doing in France, anyway?
Well, this is the problem. He's got a mate who's a doctor. And the doctor married a very beautiful blonde girl who's got a rich uncle.
Yeah.
But then the problem was he thought that he wasn't going to marry her, so he joined the Royal Navy.
Yes.
So the Navy, this is during the war, with France.
Yes.
Well, a bit of a war.
There was 100 Years' War, wasn't there?
That was way before. That was centuries before.
Okay.
So he gets engaged in some battle with the French Navy, and he ends up in a horrible jail.
Is this some kind of Napoleonic thing, maybe?
It is, yeah. Well, it must be, mustn't it? The French Revolution's just taking place.
Yeah.
That was the start of the Napoleonic era. That's where Napoleon rose to power, you see.
Right.
So he's gone over to rescue his mate, the doctor.
Yes.
Okay. The only problem is when he gets over there, some bloke keeps coming into the pub, right, and saying, "Oh, monsieur, I have information for you about your doctor." so Poldark, of course, very trusting, says, "Yes, it will cost you money." He says, and Poldark says, 20 guineas.
Right.
And the information.
Well, they take guineas over there.
Yeah, they take guineas. Yeah, apparently. And the informant says, "No, monsieur, 50 guineas." And Poldark says, "OK, 50 guineas." Right. So he gives him 50 guineas.
He's not much of a bargainer, is he?
No, he's not much of a bargainer. And the guy pushes off.
Right.
Anyway, he comes back 2 days later and he says, "Monsieur, I can find some names for you." And Poldark says, "Great, what are they?" He says, "More money, 50 guineas."
Another 50.
50 guineas. So he gives another 50 guineas, Anyway, so the bloke then says, he comes back 2 days later. Yeah. Poldark's still sitting in the booze with his mate, with the hook, and says, "Have you found anything out?" And he says, "Oh, monsieur, they have moved to somewhere else."
Another 50 guineas.
50 guineas, yeah. So anyway, by this time...
Very slow-moving, this show, isn't it?
It is a bit slow-moving now. Anyway, the serving wench in the pub has had her eye on Poldark, giving him the eye and all that.
Did he take his shirt off yet?
No, because he hasn't responded.
Oh,
he's not responded. So she then gets the hump and goes and calls La Guardia.
Right.
So they come in.
Right.
So they start laying into Poldark a bit, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But, it's taken them 6 days to notice there's an Englishman sitting in the local boozer. He doesn't speak French.
Yeah.
So they haul him off, and this is the most ridiculous part of it.
Yeah.
And they say, because you were a gentleman and you were in the English army in America and all that, we're not going to guillotine you.
All right.
Okay?
That's good.
But you must leave France tonight on the high tide.
Yes.
So Poldark says, "I've come to rescue my doctor mate." He says, "Well, tough luck. Get on the boat or else."
Yeah.
So he gets on the boat. He gets on the boat, right.
Right.
But then
see the time. By the way.
This is the most hopeless part of the whole episode, right? He then gets on the boat with his one-armed mate and then says...
With a hook?
He says, "I'm going back." But then dives off the boat, right?
Dives off it?
Fully clothed.
Right.
With his big overcoat on, his hat. He's even got his hat on. And the strangest thing is, when he emerges out of the water, he's still got his hat on and his coat, but it's like soaking wet, except it's dry. So he then goes and hides in a barn. Right, so he hides in a barn.
Is there much more of this?
No, hang on, he hides in a barn. And then Le Military have been tipped off that he's come back. So they come and get him.
Right.
And they say, "Oh, no, it is the guillotine for
for you.
The guillotine for
Monsieur
you.
Poldark.
Mr. Poldark." So then Poldark single-handedly beats them all up, all 6 of them, right, knocks them around, boom, 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 boom.
Right.
And runs off.
Right.
Runs off in the streets of Paris. The next scene we see is Demelza putting out the washing back in Cornwall.
Yes.
And you hear the old... Oh,
the horse is back.
And guess who it is? It's Poldark.
So he's back on the cliff.
Yeah, but nobody knows how he got there.
Unbelievable.
Why did he jump in the water to go and rescue his mate, the doctor, and then decide not to bother?
And what about the bloke with the hook? What's happened to him?
Well, he was left on the boat. He presumably came back in the boat and all that.
Okay.
But it was absolutely ludicrous. So the last scene is the doctor, who has not been rescued, trying to patch up all these soldiers who were,
still in France.
All the sailors still in France who were in the same battle as him.
Yeah.
And, to give them the good news, one sailor wakes up and says, oh, doctor, he says, "Oh, doctor, am I dead? And have I gone to hell?" And the doc says, "No, you're actually still alive because I've managed to stop the bleeding. But you wish you had died because you're in a living hell." And then all the credits come up.
Right.
And Poldark hasn't rescued him.
Right.
So it's a failed mission.
Okay.
The whole thing's failed.
Very good.
Yeah.
That's a bit like Porky Vision. Jim says, is this a new feature on the show now? Porky does the voices of Poldark.
That's right.
I'd buy the DVD.
Yes, absolutely.
And Perry says, has Poldark turned into Hello, Hello? That was, of course, Porky Vision. There'll be another one same time next week.
Indeed.
This is the Two Mics on talkSPORT with Wix. Don't waste precious time. Try our online stock checkers so you never have a wasted trip. There are some people who think they've wasted part of their lives listening to your Porky Vision there.
I don't think so.
Please intervene and stop this Porky Poldark madness, says Marky.
Well, listen, it's the most popular programme on British TV.
Is it?
I have an obligation as talkSPORT's official programme reviewer to analyse it.
Yeah, David says, Porky Vision's hello. The only thing missing was the Germans. Let's have a word with Tony, who's a West Ham fan, because he's got something to tell you about Poldark, which I think you might have missed.
Okay.
Tony, a very good afternoon to you.
Yeah, hi, mate. Lovely show.
Hi,
Thank
Tony.
you.
Porky.
Yeah.
Porky, you are absolutely unbelievable the way you twist things.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
What do I mean? Well, the 20 guineas for a start was to get him out of the prison.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the bloke giving you information.
Yeah, it was. It was all about information.
No. 50 guineas was what you give the guy to go and get the names.
Yes.
Then he got caught and arrested.
Yes.
He was then taken into the gendarme's place.
Yeah, I said that.
He offered him 20 guineas.
Yeah.
To let him stay because he told him he had to leave on the boat that night.
Yeah, that's right.
He said, "Can I stay till Sunday?"
Yeah.
Monday. My boat don't come back.
Yeah.
And he went, "No, you leave tonight." So
That's
he
right.
said, "Can I make it 50 guineas?"
Yeah, and he
he
said,
went, "If you offer me any, he offered me any more money.
Yeah.
I'm going to arrest you for bribery."
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about the bloke with? What about the guy with?
Hang on.
What about the guy with a hook?
On the boat.
Yeah.
They got the bloke with the hook and him got back on the boat.
Yeah.
And let.
Yeah.
They moved out. He took his hat off.
Yeah.
Handed it to the guy with a hook.
Yeah.
And said, "Tell my wife that I'm going to be delayed."
Yeah, right.
Dived back in the water.
Did he hang the hat on the hook?
Yeah,
No, he just give it to him.
Yeah.
And then when he got home,
Yeah.
the hat was on the table at Namara.
Yeah,
So
was it?
I reckon you must have been out
Yeah.
making loads of cups of teas,
Yeah.
loads of biscuits,
Yeah.
and making it up when you come back.
Hang on. He
Hang on,
dived
you got
in
that
the
bit,
water.
Tony, you got that bit wrong. It's not so much the tea and biscuits
Yeah.
you've got to worry about. It's the multiple glasses of Pinot Grigio.
Well, it could have been. But, Tony, how did he get back to England? Do you know?
Yes, because he's linked with a smuggling ring. He can get on a boat any time he likes.
What a rubbish.
Maybe swam back.
They've just glossed over that. Tony, thanks very much indeed. Next time I need advice on reviewing a TV programme,
I think Tony's
I won't
spot
bother
on.
calling you.
Well done, Tony. Thank you very much for spotting the inconsistencies in your report.
Hey,
there.
listen, talking about the continent, by the way.
Yeah, the continent.
There's another anti-British activity going on at the moment.
Really?
In Belgium.
Anti-British?
Yeah, in
what
Belgium.
are you talking about?
Well, in Belgium, you go to Belgium and you
Yeah.
walk around all these lovely squares they've got.
Yes.
You'll often pick yourself up a cone of chips
That's
at
true.
a chip
Yeah.
seller.
In Brussels, very, very
Brussels,
good for that.
yeah, that's right. And, of course, they eat it there with mayonnaise.
They do, yeah. I quite like it with mayonnaise, actually.
Rather than salt and vinegar,
I quite like chips with mayonnaise.
I don't.
Yeah. Garlic mayonnaise, actually, really nice.
No, too gooey. I
Yeah.
don't like garlic anyway. I've never eaten garlic. I don't
So you
like
say.
it.
How do you know you don't like it, then?
Well, because I like the smell of it, you see. It's
But you
too
eat
pungent.
Indian food?
Yeah, I do.
Which
but
has
it's
got
hidden.
garlic in it.
But it's kind of hidden in that.
Well, it's
isn't it?
got, yeah, but it's garlic in it. though.
Anyway, listen, just shut up for a minute because
What do you
what's
mean,
happening
shut up
is
for a minute?
what's happening is it has been identified that these Belgian chip cone sellers,
Yeah.
are charging British people an awful lot more for their chips than they're charging the Continentals.
Says who?
So, well, a report I've read in my
report
journals.
by whom?
A
I
consumer
don't believe
report.
this.
A
I don't
consumer
believe.
report.
Well, how do they know you're British for a start?
Well, because you go up and you say, "Hello, could I have a cone of chips, please?" So they work out.
Well, not all British people are like
Yeah,
you. Some
yeah.
British people actually do try and speak the local lingo.
The
Right.
chips are so expensive, it's emerged that some chip sellers in Bruges have been hitting visitors with inflated prices, especially the British, dubbed the tourist tax.
Why?
On the British. Because they, once again, they say, well, we're continentals and you're from the United Kingdom, Great Britain, call it what you will.
Are you sure about this?
I'm certain about
I
it.
think it sounds like something which has been stunted up. It's the kind of
No.
story you would write
No.
when you were in a place like Bruges with nothing better to do.
Here, Philippe Thijs is his name.
Thijs?
Yeah, owner of the Chez Vincent Friet House. The
Friet House?
Yeah, the Friet House is the chip shop.
House of Fries?
Yeah, the House of
Yeah.
Friet chip shop.
Yeah, I know.
He said, well, we do give discounts to some local people, but it's just another button on the cash register.
Yeah.
The local people he's talking about are students, who get
Students, yeah.
discounts.
Well, so
and some regular townspeople.
Yeah, so people from Bruges who are locals, who go there all the time, and students get a discount.
they get
Everybody
discount.
else pays the same. So it's nothing to do with being anti-British.
It is, because the
No,
only people he
rubbish.
serves are townspeople, students, and the British.
No, what,
And
you
the
think,
British- and
what,
the
you think
British-
there's nobody else in Bruges apart from locals and the British?
Yes, I'm certain
You
of
don't
that,
think
yeah.
there's anyone from France there?
The thing is, because we speak English, they pick on us, and we have to pay more.
Rubbish.
I think that's something.
This is the kind of nonsense that you'd get in the, one of those old papers about, the bent bananas and all the rest of it.
At least 2 chip sellers in the city of Bruges have admitted giving, quotes, discounts to regular customers.
Yeah.
I.e.,
well, what's wrong with that?
If you're not regular because you come from Britain, you pay more.
That's rubbish.
I think that's an absolute damn
that
disgrace.
That is completely utter nonsense.
Why have we got to... What is the European Court for if they can't investigate discriminatory actions
we're
like that?
not in Europe anymore, are we? We've voted to get out of it.
Well, we're not out yet.
Well, no, but we're going to be getting out of it, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. And once we have got out, I dare say the chip sellers will be charging even more money after Brexit.
Well, at least they won't be able to charge us an extra tax, will they? Because we will not fall for it anymore.
Really?
Yes.
That's the kind of xenophobic nonsense I expect from some of those newspapers you used to work for.
Well, and you.
No, I didn't work for xenophobic newspapers. How about this one? We are the Two Mics on talkSPORT. Now, we give away £100 worth of a Wix gift card.
Yes.
And I'm very happy to say that the winner of today's £100 Wix gift card is the Man United fan, Pete, who agreed that England should play games around the country and said he'd like to see them at Old Trafford. But the main reason he's won is because he told you to stop moaning about your sciatica.
Yeah, well, that was very unkind.
He said he's had it himself, and it is terrible. However, he says you need to stop moaning about it.
And I'm so kind-hearted, even though he tried to lambast me on air live, and I took the smack, in front of, our audience of millions, I still agreed that he can be the winner today, so enjoy your £100.
Thank you very much. Sam says, Porky's Demelza accent went from Punjabi to Welsh, and then Holloway's, who are you?
Yeah, he did a
Perfect,
bit,
Porky. I just love it, he says.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's my rapid sort of accent reshuffle.
Yeah.
Excuse me, needs a bit of polishing.
The rapido. Now, tomorrow, of course, it's going to be Ask Porky. So what we'll do is we'll put out on Facebook and on Twitter.
That's right.
For any questions you may have. These would be questions of any sort of nature, really. Could be of a financial nature. Could be advice on where to go on holiday.
Yes.
Could be a little bit of, marital discord that you're suffering from.
Okay.
Porky will try and help you with that.
That's right.
And then, of course, we haven't worked out what the Porky quiz is going to be on Friday.
What about the charts in the 70s?
What?
No, that dates it, doesn't it?
The charts in the 70s. Can we not get away from the 70s?
Yeah, let's get away from the 70s.
Yeah. Can we not do something that's kind of current, like 2017?
Yes, we will. Don't worry. I will come up with the subject tomorrow.
You'll come up with the subject tomorrow?
Yes, exactly.
Really?
Yes.
Why don't we do a quiz on Poldark, that's being suggested to me?
Well, that's too current. I mean, that's going on at the moment.
What do you mean it's too current?
You want to do...
Well, it's about the third series, isn't it?
It's the third series, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think a quiz on Poldark would be good.
Okay, I like that. Quiz on Poldark.
It'd be good. I mean, you could do all your different accents as well.
Yeah, I can,
Well, you get along with it.
That's right.
Do you know what we haven't really mentioned, and there isn't really time now, but Salvador Dali's being exhumed.
It's not amazing.
Yeah.
It's not amazing.
Well, it's pretty awful,
They're trying to find out whether he fathered a child or not.
That's right, yeah.
So they're going to take a scraping of his bone.
Apparently,
from which you can get DNA.
Some woman called Pilar Abel, who claims that she's related to him in some way.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Shocking business, though.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been dead a long time.
He has been dead a long time.
He's
a great artist.
He was?
Yeah.
Have you got any of his paintings?
No, of course not.
Okay. This is talkSPORT. Don't forget to follow the Two Mics at the Two Mics on Twitter and on YouTube. Just look for Two Mics TV.